Operation GCD with an Appalachian grin. Adventures and shenanigans, we're diving right in. Out in the holler where the secrets creep, garbage can dudes digging mighty deep. Secret societies, shadows in the pines. Operation GCD of American rebels design. Double J searching deep in his brain hole, past layers of malted hops and bone resin. From cults to cover-ups, we're talking about all of that. So watch your sixth friend in the truth we trust. The world's a puzzle, grunge rock ain't what it seems. Ancient alien cargo cults haunt the moon's pale beams. Cincinnati schemers, history's a haze. Double J's on the mic, lighting things ablaze. Operation GCD with an Appalachian grin. Adventures and shenanigans, we're diving right in. Join us on the journey and enjoy the show. Thanks for joining us to get a little GCD. Yeah, the world's a puzzle, grunge rock ain't what it seems. Ancient alien cargo coats haunt the moon's pale beam. Cincinnati schemers, history's a haze. Double J's on the mic, light things ablaze. Hell, the world's a puzzle, grunge rock ain't what it seems. Ancient alien cargo cults haunt the moon's pale beams. Cincinnati schemers, history's a haze. Double J's on the mic, lighting things ablaze. Double J's on the mic, lighting things ablaze.
Boom! Howdy, folks. Your host, Double J, back here, coming at you live from my studio/RV dining room, located directly inside America. Anyhow, folks of the interwebs, welcome back again. JJ Vance here, host of Operation GCD, and perhaps more notably, not the vice president right there. Anyhow, I will be your pilot and navigator for tonight's shenanigan-infused journey into the mind of this particular garbage can dude. And not gonna lie to you folks, got a real barn burner here on deck for y'all tonight. The Occult and/or Esoteric review of the 1993 comedy cinematic masterpiece, So I Married an Axe Murderer. So before I welcome on tonight's guest and panel here for this review, just want to thank you folks again here for joining us tonight to get a little GCD. And like I said, got a real barn burner on deck. We got Heidi Love, Unfiltered Rise podcast. Welcome, Heidi.
Hi, thanks for having me. Always a wonderful time and one of my favorite movies, JJ. So
you ain't kidding. I agree with you on both counts, ma'am. I always enjoy our conversations, and this is easily one of my favorite films for sure. And we had a real barn burner conversation the other night there on Charles's podcast over there, the host of the Eyes and Ears podcast.
Oh yeah, it was a good one. That was a good one. I had fun.
I thoroughly enjoyed that one for sure, and highly recommend folks go check that out.
Right, a little bit of bloodline magic over there. Might want to check it out, guys.
I mean, the occult bloodlines of America. It is an underlying thing I like to speak about here, and you and I frequently discuss when we collaborate on shows and discussions. Oh, yeah. But it is an element that I think does play into everything within a lot of the folks that put hidden things in films, which we see tonight here as well. So, in our next, did you have any plugs you'd like to plug here before we welcome in our next guest here, Heidi?
Sure. And so I'm Heidi Love. If you don't know me, I'm at the Unfiltered Rise. I'm everywhere podcasts are served. You can find me at my own website, unfilteredrisepodcast.com. And anywhere else you want to check me out, I'm probably there. I'm usually bouncing in.
Spokane Bob. I like that one. That's a good one, Dan.
My
It's a
little
little Idaho
stutter.
4 humor right there. No, it's good stuff. Thanks again, Heidi, for joining me. Julia, welcome, ma'am. Thanks for joining me here to get a little GCD. Host of
What's
Cosmic Peak.
up?
Welcome back for your first time. Operation GCD.
My first time every time, it feels
Right.
like, right?
That's the ongoing joke I like to make, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, would you like to? What are you working on over there at Cosmic Peach? I know we've done some epic Tuesday Weld conversations, in the recent past, and a very great conversation with you and your husband Colby on the Colts, the creepy Colt situation.
Yeah, I know Colby is wanting to do some more cult stuff with you. Hopefully I can join in on that one too. I always love talking about cults. Love joining anytime on Operation GCD. We always have a blast. It's always a barn burner. We
Yes,
burn the
ma'am.
barn down.
That's what we aim to do here.
Yes.
So, any plugs you'd like to make? You're working on anything else you're working on right now?
Well, I have a presentation that I actually want to bring on to Operation GCD at some point of program killer that I discovered that I think you'll find very interesting. But as usual, Cosmic Peach Podcast, wherever you listen to podcasts. If you want to get in touch with me, please send me an email. But yeah, no, just running and gunning. The usual.
Nice. Well, program killers. Now you're talking my language. That's what I've been covering a lot here in recent weeks here in Operation GCD.
We'll have to team up on this one. I found it's pretty cray.
Well, before I bring in our last guest here this evening, my Abbott and Costello comedy duo partner from his Kane B's Idaho 4 channel. The one thing that I think is a meta-analysis here on the note of these program killers on the film So I Married an Axe Murderer is it's telling a tale about San Francisco, a town with a lot of these program killers as you just described, and it's doing so in a manner about a serial killer. Just saying. So I think there's a lot of that in tonight's film. So, and last but not least, sir, welcome, Kane B, to your first. This is the Purge takeover. This Purge invasion of Operation GCD, the reverse invasion. Usually, I'm invading the Purge, but Kane B's the Purge, Idaho 4, Abbott and Costello. I like to describe our routine over there, and I appreciate you joining me, sir.
Me and my cookie.
I see we brought our type 2 diabetes snacks with us tonight.
Yes, sir. If you have anything to match that, let me know.
I don't. I wasn't prepared for this. So you only bring my snacks to the Purge.
You should have known better.
So we had a pretty good Purge yesterday, going over some new details that seemed to be a whirlwind of topics. I saw some clips from a different YouTube creator talking about that. The new Brian's friend that got rolled out alongside with these DoorDash things that get rolled out, right? All these distractions, huh?
Yeah, he was calling people fat in his video that got taken down, and then
I saw that
he attacked her. And you don't mess with Jules. She's a good lady. She's smart. One of the friends of the show.
I'm a little concerned about that man's criminal history in my assessments, but that's a different story altogether, and perhaps grounds for the next Purge.
For Monday there, JJ.
For sure.
Tuesday Purge.
Absolutely, yes. We'll do. What we doing a weekend purges? So the next Purge is Monday or Tuesday, huh?
Maybe a weekend. If I do a pop-up surprise Purge, I wouldn't be surprised. I've been purging pretty much 24 hours straight for the last couple days, nonstop on my Not Kane B's channel and on here now.
Yeah.
And on my channel. So yeah, there's a lot coming out, a lot to talk about, and then you got to get the goofing around off also as well. Today there was a lot of articles I tagged you in. I don't know if you had a chance to look at those yet.
No.
A mother in Idaho thinks that her teenage children, 13 and 15, were kidnapped by an offshoot of the LDS Church.
Oh, well, you're in the right spot for these stories, my friend.
And they had
Heidi's here. She's an expert in these topics.
Or clean or fresh or whatever it is. So Yeah, it's kind of creepy story.
This just popped off today.
Too close to my house. We're going to Idaho soon.
It happened on Sunday, actually, Sunday night while she was at Bible study. The children vanished, and she was a part of this cult. And that's what they do with kids: is they sacrifice them basically, and they bury them, and they're supposed to be reborn clean.
Yeah, fresh. Well, that's part of these concerns with such matters, right?
Yeah, we know a lot of
visions of glory, visions of glory cult, right up in there.
Well, the positions of the higher echelon in Idaho also are attached to, I think, these offshoot cults, but as well as the LDS Church in general. It's just
I'm glad you said that, because you've come to the right place to talk these matters, sir. And I will, in fact, be including the Bob Cocaine Evans factor to tonight's film and the Process Church factor to tonight's film. So just throwing that out there now.
I'm stoked.
I'm excited as well. That's very interesting.
And if I may plug a couple things before we get started, definitely folks should check out the Idaho 4 Purge, Kane B's The Purge, for your Idaho 4, news information and your latest in fast food and type 2 diabetes information. So it's interesting that you mentioned that thing about an Air Force bombing yesterday, because I still hadn't had time to read about it, Kane. But Heidi was just telling me about it. If you wanted to bring that up, I know you wanted my opinion on that, sir. So I'm happy to share that with you for my plugs.
Oh, sure. Share it with Heidi. I see how it goes.
Well, I was actually sharing with him that a couple days ago, it's been 100 degrees all week. And then it got down to 45 degrees in the middle of summer. And we had a huge sonic boom. And I'm like, what in the earth? That wasn't the dog. Like, come on. What is happening? And actually it really scared my little girl. She freaked out, and I was like, it's okay. Like, we'll figure it out. And they were like, sorry about it. We didn't tell you. We're setting off the bombs. I'm like, shit, the 9's going to come. Oh my gosh.
Wow.
When they start setting off the bombs, those aliens come back. So
I thought I was going to be able to be the big star here today with my tornado a mile over from my house today, about an hour ago, but you definitely struck me there.
You got to step up your game here, Kane, here at Operation GCD, especially when Heidi's around.
I forgot who I was dealing
Julia.
with. Pardon me.
Yeah, you got to understand the environment you're walking into here. These are heavy hitters here, Kane.
I got no regrets. I
don't have a cookie though.
Much like yourself, sir. Much like yourself. So, all respect as well. So, I honestly didn't know anything about that, but the Heidi was telling me about it, and it sounds very interesting. And I assume this is the Air Force bomb you were describing to me.
Yeah. Then they did it again. So they did it again and just were like, oops. So they're obviously detonating and practicing out here. There's a lot of downwinders out here that have permanent damage from the last time they played this game, and then it gets all cold, and I'm like, what are they lighting up there? Is Bill Gates here? I want to know. I don't know, but yeah, the sun definitely went away. So
it's very interesting.
2 days. Yeah.
And I wasn't trying to embarrass Twiz here, but
on the rent.
I mean, they do all kinds of stuff here. I dare say the Mormons have sold out the Goyim and just don't care. They're locked up in their whatever proof houses. So meh.
Well, there's a lot in regards to Twiz's comment there about the boners, it reminded me of a statement you made yesterday. Not fear boners, Kane, but when you were doing your introduction yesterday, you mentioned what sounded to me like necromancy. Elon Musk was taking the ashes of individuals into space.
Yes, sir. Well, not him personally, but his rocket craft there, the Saturn V.
One of those individuals was Chekhov. Is that correct?
No, Scotty.
I'm sorry, Scotty. Yes. So Scotty's son was Boner from.
Actually, Chekhov might be in there. DeForest Kelly is one, and that's and then also Gene Roddenberry as well.
Well, there you go. So that was what I wanted. I forgot to include yesterday the Bob Cocaine factor of that matter. Those are Bob's friends. Gene Roddenberry.
Oh, Genie Boy was definitely all clued in on the most. That's for sure. Sure.
And and Boner from Growing Pains' dad, Scotty, there. I don't know if you're familiar with Boner's death, dude. That dude died a really weird death in Vancouver.
So did the guy from Alf. The dad from Alf also passed away in a really wild turn.
Well, I don't know if Boner from Growing Pains had the same meth and gay black male prostitute problem that the father from Alf did, but they might have. I didn't know him personally, but there's a lot of tabloid photos of that Elf or the Alf father, and he's doing a lot of meth with a lot of gay black male prostitutes. So I'm just saying, no judgment here. I'm just saying, I don't know if it's the exact same circumstances between the two, but
prostitution in general, or if you're found strangling yourself at your own death, it's probably not a good look. Like, don't die during it. For heaven's sakes, clean it up.
Well, for sure. But do y'all remember that fellow by the name of Brian Peck who was involved in diddling one of them kids for, I think, from the Disney Junior, maybe, I think it was. He was Leonardo DiCaprio's babysitter or whatever on the Growing Pains set. I just imagine a lot of dark shit went on.
That was Nickelodeon.
Was it a Nickelodeon diddler? Okay. I thought he diddled one of them kids from the Wizards of Waverly Place show. Maybe I'm getting my diddlers conflated.
Yeah, he was for sure diddling what's his fuck from Drake and Josh. I think it was Drake.
Oh, there you go.
Bell.
That was Nickelodeon. Okay, that was Nickelodeon.
Yeah, that he was a Nickelodeon pervert, and I mean, there was plenty of them.
Yeah, you also got Samantha from iCarly as well.
So sad. And then we got Hannah Montana going crazy up in the house. Like you can see the fallout from all this stuff.
Amanda Bynes.
You know, I have a country.
Well, I'm glad you said that, Julia. I'm glad you said that because that's.
You guys want to hear it?
Can we hold that for maybe the intermission? Maybe the intermission will do that. So I'm glad you said Amanda Bynes because everyone wants to attribute all of her downfall to Dan Schneider, and I'm not saying he's not a factor involved, but I'd like to know where Dan Schneider and J.J. Bryan, the Neo Process cult leader, meet because Amanda Bynes' best friend for many years, party until wee hours of the morning, was J.J. Bryan. An incognito Amanda Bynes parties with wild-eyed friend in L.A. until 4 a.m. as she continues to turn down parents' help. And there he is, Mr. Process Church himself.
Nice. Have you seen that Amanda Bynes is now advocating for Ozempic too?
Kill more people faster? Oh, sorry. No.
I have not seen that, but I don't know if she's an advocate for anything, quite honestly. Who's going to take her word for it? You know what I mean at this point?
I mean, unless she lost a bunch of weight.
Come on, she's the man. What do you mean?
That's a good one. Well played, Kane.
That is
a
good one.
Oh.
So tonight's film, I have a brief trailer for everyone to watch. But before I do that, I want to do a couple real fast plugs. Tomorrow night, Operation GCD Thursdays, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Times, or whatever, however that works, Eastern Times. Oh, wrong one. I got The Anatomy of Satanic Panic, Volume 2, talking and unpacking the satanic panic and the real-world actual events that occurred and around the non-Muppetized version of this fella, Michael Aquino, who, much like tonight's tale, took place in San Francisco. You can see the Trans America building. That's a weird name. The pyramid, the Golden Gate Bridge, and I got a little Presidio billboard there for him too. And then Operation GCD Sundays, not too far off from tonight's tale either, because as you see here, Bob Cocaine Evans. I redid Ghost Stories. I did this last Wednesdays, and I redid the Ghost Stories logo, but did it Manson family murder style. So now Miss Peggy's Sharon Tate, Kane, the Gooch's father's military U.S. Army intelligence officer boss. The lead detective in the Idaho 4 case, his father was the protege to Sharon Tate's U.S. Army intelligence father. He worked for him in the U.S. Army intelligence. So that's obviously a weird connection in one of these quote unquote 6 degrees of the Manson family murders. But then I couldn't do a good Nicholson. This is the best I got here on Nicholson on the left. Jack Nicholson. I think Roman Polanski turned out pretty well. And then I got Cocaine Bob. I love Cocaine Bob. Yeah. And, I think Charles Manson here turned out looking more like a Dr. Seuss character than a Muppet, but I'll deal with it. Deal with it later.
It looks like you got stretched out like Play-Doh.
Yeah, I don't love it, but I do love the swastika. I nailed that one. I feel like it's when I say I nailed it, that's accurate depiction of the actual swastika and process church symbol he had on his own head in the exact. It's down to the details. What I'm saying, folks, attention to detail is important here.
The Ghost Story show was super fun, though.
That was an amazing movie, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was somebody put that in the comments too. I agree. I think it was a great episode.
So I've applied that same concept, kind of that story, the plot line of these old men getting together, telling about this ghost story, and I've re-envisioned it as these old men, and the ghost story being Sharon Tate, that they were responsible for her murder decades earlier, just like in the film Ghost Story. So I'm just saying there's a lot of these things that when we see them embedded, my point being is there's kind of even an esoteric aspect to these meta narratives that we see play out within these same cult groups, right? And that are embedded in these films, right? And tonight's film, San Francisco serial killers and Mike Myers, who recently got associated with the CIA despite being Canadian, right?
So crazy.
Hey, what are you talking about, eh?
Did you all see that?
No, I did not.
Yeah.
I did not know about that. No.
Yeah, it came out in the Diddy trial. Speaking of Idaho Contra, because I assert that's part of the Diddy trial, is part of Idaho Contra. His cellmate has been Sam Bankman-Fried. They have the same attorneys, and Sam Bankman-Fried bought out a small bank in rural Washington, 45 miles north of Washington State and University of Idaho campuses, in the preceding years before the murders on 11/13/2022. And the University of Idaho president has associations with that same FTX business dealings. So there's a lot of weird stuff going on there. But Bankman-Fried bought out a bank and was doing a cash for crypto scam that he's basically walked on. Despite being charged for other things, he's walked on that thus far. And Diddy made an emergency stop in Idaho shortly before he got arrested. So weird shit going on around this Diddy trial. I'll tell you what, and it ain't just the GHB and the baby oil stuff. There's a lot of weird shit going on here,
Well, whenever it's that slippery, you have to watch yourself. That's what's up.
You ain't kidding. You ain't kidding. Literally slippery, right?
You know that they're in deliberations on whether to dismiss all charges right now on Diddy.
Wow.
That's what I'm saying, dude. And then Bankman-Fried's trying to walk on a lot of his stuff too.
Well, the enzyme case and all that got dropped. I'm just saying they have a way to get rid of things if they want to. So
well if you compare all part of the it's just part of the theater of it all, really. I mean,
I think it's part of the national security state part of it. If you compare all this to Iran Contra, and everybody walked there, and the few that got brought up on charges, that the ones that got charged were the ones that were blowing the whistle, so to speak. And that one of those people comes up in tonight's plot line, Lyndon LaRouche. You all familiar with that? Well, it's my favorite scene in tonight's film. And before I get too far, and we'll play the preview for folks who are unfamiliar. But it's my favorite scene when he starts going into that Pentaveret and his conspiracy theories. Well,
love it.
That's when he starts. His wife there, Mike Myers' character's mother in the film there, she says that he's quoting that Lyndon LaRouche rubbish again. So Lyndon LaRouche was an associate of Oliver North and was starting to out both the Iran Contra stuff and the Process Church specifically in 1986. And what happened was then the U.S. Attorney's Office hired the Process Church's attorney, and then that guy, John Markham, prosecuted Lyndon LaRouche for fraud. So there's a lot to that LaRouche stuff relative to the Process, and that's not the only Process connection to tonight's tale.
Only you, JJ, would have caught that shit.
You ain't kidding, ma'am. So this film came out. Well, I'll get to that in a second. How I got us interested in this film and my biggest takeaway there, which I kind of already shared. So spoiler alert, Process stuff, shocker. But we see Mike Myers. What is the Austin Powers netizens' reaction to testimony Diddy trial about Mike Myers? I don't know what that means because that's not what the title was that I clicked on. But there was the latest testimony in the ongoing trial of Sean Combs, a.k.a. Puff Daddy, in a federal court in Manhattan, revealed even more celebrities who were invited to attend Combs' parties. Damn it, I clicked on an article about the CIA. Combs' former assistant described setting up a private tour of the CIA for Myers as his former employee. So in some associations, for whatever reason here, Diddy and Mike Myers are doing CIA tours together in and around the same associated activities, at least, right?
What?
Doesn't surprise me.
We also see some other characters mentioned here, also mentioned in the trial, Madonna.
Well, that one's not a shocker.
Well, that's true, but her best friend is in tonight's film.
Who's
His
her
hair in
best
that
friend?
picture?
One of her best friends
Stop that.
for many decades is and Debbie Mazar. No, that's reading Kane Boyle. That's a good one, sir.
Debbie who?
Debbie Mazar.
Mazar?
Who's that lady?
She played the girlfriend of Anthony LaPalish's character.
Oh, at the diner?
Yeah, the diner
What
lady.
the fuck?
Yeah, that's Madonna.
Besties
She was
with Madonna?
back then, even too, is what I'm saying, and still today. Yeah, and you got to consider that. You have to look at that because then you look at Madonna, and you're like, what is going on there, right?
A
And
lot.
I'm not even just
So much.
I'm not even just talking about her. Look at her family.
It's so much.
Oh
It's
God.
so many. There's so
I
many
can't.
things
Dude,
happening.
what is going on here? What
That's some
insane
modern day
music?
monsters right there.
It is, isn't? Dude, that's the first thing I
Addams
thought of,
family
Kane.
bullshit.
That's the first thing I thought of,
My
man.
God.
First
Look at
of
this.
all, their facelifts have got to have had some babies in them because lately they all look normal again. Remember, she looked like a cat a year ago. Remember?
Can
was
we agree that the
completely
individual
weird.
on the left is a dude? Can we agree on that?
I don't
Second
even
from the
know
left. Second from the
anymore.
left. Second from the left.
Oh my
Looks like Cher. It's a
gosh.
young Cher.
Lourdes. Yeah, her name is Lourdes.
I can't even
Lord.
because if we get started on
Ball.
that,
yeah, it's a whole thing. Yep.
Now,
Did
what's going on
somebody
with
wrote in the
Madonna's
comments
diaper fall off on stage?
Oh, gross. I didn't
whose
know that.
diaper fell off?
It depends on who you ask, I guess.
Depends. Good one,
Depends
sir.
on who you ask.
You're
Ha,
full
ha,
of
ha,
puns
ha,
tonight.
ha, ha.
So are
Somebody
these
said
two
Madonna
youngsters-
went
is she
for
on
the
the-
spooky lion face. That's funny.
She
It's
was a
spooky, all
spooky
right.
lion face.
It-
You want to talk
Are
about
them two
faces,
youngsters?
though. Look
Are
at
them two
Kelly
youngsters
Osbourne.
on? Are them two youngsters on the Charlize Theron program? Y'all remember that?
Yeah.
She adopts two young black boys, Africans from Africa. She's African, but she's South African, so that's what made the difference there. She adopts two young African boys and says, "Congratulations, you're an American and you're a girl now."
Oh, that sucks. What if you want to be a boy?
Right? Well, they're pretty princesses.
Wow.
That's classic.
Along with Megan's kids, Megan Fox's little girl boys. Seen them?
Yeah,
Same thing.
it's
She's
a going
got a
trend for
spooky
sure.
lion face too, by the way.
They
She
all
looks
do
like
it.
non-human almost.
They get like
Right.
I get where okay, you're not, you're a child. You're so young still. You don't have to worry about this. But listen, I'm getting older. And I will not make my face a lion face, first of all. And second of all, I don't know about poisons in my face either. I feel I might have an allergic reaction and die. But that keeps
You
me
talking like
honest.
Botox and stuff like that?
None of that. I've done none of
Well,
that.
I gotta be honest with you, Heidi. I think what they're doing goes beyond what's available to someone like you and I, anyways. I don't think.
weird.
I think the procedures
say
they're
it.
getting
They all say it.
go
They're all
beyond
doing
like your traditional Botox here and there, or
Right.
like a little bit of the. I mean, I think they're doing some inhuman type stuff that we won't have access to ever. To be honest,
that
with
we
you,
don't
that-
even understand.
that we
probably.
would
They're-
we're not even aware
ju-
is an option at this point.
Just listen to what they say they do. They put like baby foreskin all over their face and stuff like that. So they're admitting to that.
Sandy B said that one. She said that part out loud.
I think Megan Fox has too. She also does weird blood stuff. If they admit to these things that they're admitting to,
I
what do they
know.
do behind closed doors?
Well, and I think that they almost look at stuff like Botox is like beneath them. It's like, oh, save
Mhm.
that for the peasants getting Botox.
Oh.
Hey,
like you
the
and I would
peasants
look
don't
at
look
it
like
and be-
lions, bro.
You're right. Like you and I would look at it and be like, oh, I'm not really interested in Botox, or it's like a weird poison that people are injecting into their face. And they're like, yeah, exactly. I don't want that shit either. Give me.
Yeah, they're like, yeah, you go get it. That's funny.
I don't disagree. Yeah, it's definitely for the peasants. That is definitely
Uh-oh.
going to be. It's the class warfare of the matters, right? They're not going to do everything else. The lower people in society are
I
doing.
got-
I got cut out. But yeah, I think they're doing all kinds of weird stuff. I mean, stuff that we will never
think
probably
they're
even
trying
have
to look-
access to.
You think they're trying to look like fallen angels, Julia?
I don't know what they're trying to look like. It's some type of like cartoon version, a bloated faced version of like
You're right.
it's like it's inhuman. Nobody's face actually looks like that.
Well, they all look the same, right? Like you can look at a
Started
picture of
with
like
Mickey,
Carrie
what's it-
Fisher late in
Mickey
life, and you can look at a picture
right?
of Carrie Fisher later in life and look at a picture of Bruce Jenner. They look strikingly similar, right? After all that surgery.
Right. They even made a joke about it. My husband took me to go see the new 28 Years Later movie.
Oh.
And they made a
Cillian
joke about
Murphy?
it in there. Huh?
Oh.
Is that Cillian Murphy? Is that the star of that still? The Scarecrow?
No, is it? I don't know. Did you watch 28 Days Later, the zombie movie?
I think so.
Oh yeah,
I did, but it's been so
this
long.
is like the sequel to that 28 Years Later. Basically, it's like the sequel or whatever. But
yeah, is he back in it though? Cillian Murphy, is it the same dude?
I didn't recognize anybody in the cast. I think it's like all new peeps.
Oh.
But anyways, I just found it funny because it is a joke, and I think that they got stuff in their creams and serums and stuff that they get from like children's hospitals, when they do the spina bifida stuff and they suction off that that fluid.
That's so scary.
What is it? It's called.
You said it. Spina bifida. Yeah. The
in 1 second. You cosmic peached me.
Gosh.
It's called spina bifida something, and they put it into cosmetic products. So all these hospitals that are doing like all this goodwill stuff for the kids that are suffering from all these like horrible medical ailments, they're literally siphoning off like parts of their bodies, and they include it into cosmetic products. So I mean,
spinal fluid. You're talking about the spinal
fluid. Yeah. And it's like you said before, weird foreskin stuff, and they all think it's hilarious, but
there's always new shit. I've never even heard of this until the other day. Have you ever all heard of this, Heidi? A Vasper machine? It's some sort of new rehabilitation thing.
No.
Oh yeah. It's for athletes. It's supposed to help them recover from muscles overnight, like 3 times as quickly. And
my husband's watching. Don't get any ideas. He's a little gym rat buff guy. No, we're not doing that.
I don't exactly. I haven't got around my brain hole around exactly how it works, but this is the next greatest thing in athletic training. So there's always something, Julia. Whether it's injecting stuff or doing stuff like this, where there are people that that the masses or public don't know about, right?
You know what it looks like? It looks like a cross between a hover round and those stretchy weights. What were they called? The Tybo or the
Schindler's List. Gotcha.
No, the Bowflex. It's a Bowflex.
Oh yeah.
And a hover round. Remember the hover round commercials?
Yeah. There is a Bowflex aspect to that. There's definitely a Bowflex kind of resistance training to that.
I sounded just like Julia's grandmother just then, so she got a little.
Well, if without any further ado here, I'm going to play a quick trailer, and then we'll go round table on what got you interested in this film originally, and what was the biggest takeaway you saw, after rewatching it today, through a newer lens, many years later, right from your initial viewings. Well, I don't know about when did you first see it, Julia? Because I know I saw it at the theater, and I know Kane and Heidi both said they saw it shortly after.
Well, before you play the trailer, I will say I was born in late '94.
That's why she doesn't need Botox.
Man, I totally missed it. Obviously, I wasn't even born yet when this came out, but I watched it for the first time when you invited me to do this podcast.
Yeah. So nice.
It was brand new for me, and I actually have a lot to say about it after you play the trailer, because I have a crisp, fresh view of this movie.
I like the cut of your
shit. I like it.
Love it.
I got 2 trailers. On that note, I really, I just watched Ghost Story again the other day. I had never watched it before last week's review, so I'm glad to hear that you also watched this one for the first time due to one of these GCD film reviews. So I'm trying to we'll watch both. I actually there was a theatrical trailer, and then they didn't like it, and then they made another one, and I saved both of them and clipped clip both of them for 30 seconds to get out the bulk of the plot line. But it's also interesting to see that Mike Myers was quite a diva apparently on this set, and I want to make note of that. And just when we go into it here,
get my coffee, peasant.
Oh, it's bad. Some of those tales are bad. They're real bad.
Whoa, man!
Charlie Mackenzie has his poetry.
This poem sucks.
His family.
Heat! Move! Look at the size of that boy's head. Shh. Gotta give the boy a complex. Well, that's a huge noggin.
And most of all, his fears.
I broke up with those girls for very good reasons.
Oh, really?
Yes.
What about Pam?
She smelled like soup.
Then one day, he met Harriet.
Ah!
Yikes.
I'll never not laugh when hearing that he broke up with a lady because she smelled like soup. I mean, that's just the most ridiculous reason, you know.
Exactly like beef vegetable soup.
They reused that joke in did you guys ever
Seinfeld.
watch Juno?
Too. Yeah.
Oh, I've seen it, but it's been a long time.
Yeah, they used that. They said that somebody smelled like soup, and then they compared her to her house to Lipton Landing. So I think it's always funny when somebody says somebody smells like soup, because you'd think it'd be a comforting smell. I love soup. I fucking love Panera. I walk in and I feel like I'm getting embraced in a warm, soupy hug.
By a Nazi hug at that, by the Nazis that own the place, right?
Right.
No soup for you.
I love soup.
I'll have the mulligatawny, please.
That's the soup Nazi, sir. He may have a job at Panera because they are owned by literal Nazis. I'm not making that up. The Jab Holding Corporation.
No soup for you.
Big time Nazis. Yeah, they'd hire him in a heartbeat. They love Nazis over there.
I had a
They make
girlfriend.
mean potato soup.
She was a Canadian Japanese girl, and
we got an ex-girlfriend tail on deck. I like it.
Not in a pH sort of way, if you'll pardon the expression.
I'm tracking. I'm tracking.
She,
Not
in
sure where you're going with
general,
this,
had a fishy smell. I feel like
that's what I figured you were going.
you know what I mean. And just
She smelled like fish.
She smelled like fish.
Well, did she work at
like
did she
just the way
possibly
I
work
probably
at
smell like hamburger and steak.
Yeah.
Dude,
Did she possibly work?
any
Soup is
day
bet-
over
I'm
fish.
with Julie on that one. Soup is better now. Yeah.
Did she possibly work at San Francisco's Fisherman's Wharf?
Have you heard of this case? Mrs. X. She murders her husband on her honeymoon, then she changes her identity and marries again.
I never heard of it, so what?
I think I'm dating Mrs. X.
Alarming rise in the number of poisoning murders across the United States.
It's a smart drink to improve your brain power. You like it, Charlie?
Thank you, no.
Thank you. No.
So we got the full scope of everything. We got Beatnik, a movie about beatniks, venerating the beatnik movement, which was the proto hippie movement, which literally the figures in that movement brought us the hippie movement out of Laurel Canyon through the Summer of Love in Monterey and right into the hate in Ashbury, right? With the Grateful Dead, Michael Riconosciuto, Charles Manson. I don't know why I couldn't remember Charles Manson's name for a second, but the fact that we have all these parapolitical events to go right back to this same era that this movie is paying homage to, and it's a movie about a serial killer with some of old Cocaine Bob's friends in it. I'm a little concerned about some of these things when I look at these things later in life. But let's start our roundtable here, if you don't mind. Kane, will you kick us off here with when did you first discover this film? What was your interest in? What's your biggest takeaway from your recent viewing?
Well, JJ, it's all about the nookie, right? And so I had a girlfriend. She happened to be a Mormon from Park City. She was an Olympic downhill skier, and she broke her femur. And
she broke her femur skiing?
Correct. And it ended her career. She was like a gold medalist downhill. And
I was gonna say, I don't know how you ski on a broken femur. That's gotta be rough. Yeah, it's gonna end your career, huh?
Her name was Tevika. Really, I connected with her a few years back again after 20 years. But she watched a lot of movies, listened to a lot of music while she was, strapped up with the leg down. And so have you seen, because she was quoting, so I married an axe murderer all the time, and I didn't get it. She said, you haven't seen it? And so we finally sat down and watched it. And I don't know that I necessarily would have thought it was funny had she not been so into it and quoting everything from it all the time. But once I heard everything in the movie, I'd heard her say it 50 times, and it blew my mind. And so that and
so your girl got you hooked, huh?
One. And the Burbs, the movie The Burbs.
Love that movie.
I said, so your ex-girlfriend got you hooked, huh?
Very much, yeah.
Nice.
That's
now, The Burbs is a good one. We might have to do that one in the future. Sir.
The Burbs would be a good one for the show, I think.
I've done a breakdown on The Burbs before, and there's so much stuff in there you blow your pecker right off.
Don't blow it off.
Literally blow it off.
Don't do that. Yeah, don't do it. Don't do it real world, but yeah.
JJ, are you a pretty girl now?
So pretty, JJ.
It puts the lotion on its skin. So
yes, it does.
What was your biggest takeaway, Kane, from rewatching this now? Is this the first time you've seen it in the last 22 years?
I watched it today. I'm
sorry, disregard 32 years. My apologies, sir.
I'm only 28, so just remember that.
You stop it. You're the most busted 28-year-old I've ever seen.
To do that.
You must be 28 times 2.
Anyway, so yeah, I like that area of San Francisco. Charmed is another production that comes from that exact area. I think they might have used the same house. It's the one with
yes,
Alyssa Milano, and then
the series. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
The other one that you like, the one that was in the cult, the red-haired girl. What's her name?
Rose McGowan.
Rose McGowan.
Yes,
Thank you very much, sir.
That's very interesting. That's very interesting.
Piper from Charmed. If anybody out there knows who Piper is, I guess she's my TV type.
So what was the connection? There's a connection between this film and Charmed? It was filmed at some
I
of the same
think
spots?
that final scene was filmed at the house, the Charmed house. I believe so. It's a very iconic thing. I think that's it's near Hayden Ashbury, but I forgot the name of the road. It's really iconic.
I'll look it up here in a minute. I didn't pick up on that. I'm glad you mentioned that. That's awesome. You already blew my brain hole with a Zach Galifianakis cameo in this film that I was.
I don't know. We got a JJ.
I have some stuff to say about that house later, so don't go too far into it. To the house.
You never left.
Yeah. So I'll look up some of that. I know they show the Full House home in this film. So I Married an Axe Murderer, which there's
a lot on the house. There's some interesting stuff on the house.
Which house is that?
That is that they filmed it in. Mm-hmm. The one, the one I'm thinking of, the white one for me. He's talking about the one of the dad, I think. Right?
Yeah, I'm just talking about. You see the Full House. You know that scene you see in the beginning of Full House in that park. You see the facades of those homes. You see that same scene in here, which is interesting because again, that's another Bob Cocaine Evans factor right there, because that's who produced Full House, and that's who is the friend of Bob's, and that's who owns the Cielo Drive property where the Manson family murders occurred at the Tate Polanski home, and in that home today lives Marilyn Manson, who was the longtime boyfriend of Rose McGowan from your Charm show there, friend.
And that was the house that the dad was in, right? Or no?
There's
multiple houses. The White House where they got married is the house I'm talking about for later.
Yeah, I don't think this is. I don't think it's this house. The one I'm talking about, I don't think it's in the show. I don't think it was used as a site. It was just shown in one of those scenes. I'll bring up a picture in a minute. But Kane, did you have anything else, sir, that you wanted to add to your affinity for the film and or anything else you saw?
I'm still waiting on my hula burgers over here right now. What are my hula burgers?
I actually just DoorDashed you some hula burgers. They're coming in a white Elantra 2015. So I appreciate your input there, sir.
Up right now.
Don't worry, the driver's name's Brian. He's cool. Julia, how you doing, ma'am? Appreciate joining us again. So I was a little surprised that you had just seen this, but I'm excited to hear about kind of your initial. I guess you don't really have a comparative analysis of when you first seen it to now, since you've seen it once. But What was your biggest takeaway?
Well, I have to say, my husband has watched this movie several times, and he was
Nice.
surprised that I hadn't seen it either. After watching it, I'm surprised I hadn't seen it before now because, oh, thank you. It's so funny. It's really, really funny. There were
I love it.
multiple scenes where I laughed out loud, literally laughed out loud. And I actually was surprised because as a kind of like a 2000s kid, the only exposure I really ever got to Mike Myers was Austin Powers. And I thought he was like the ugliest person to ever walk the face of the earth. And in this movie, he's so cute. I was like, when the fuck was Mike Myers like a handsome guy, to even be able to play a main character like this? I was like kind of taken back. It's hilarious.
That's a good point. That's a really good point, actually.
Mike Myers is hilarious. I thought that the jokes were on point and the soundtrack was banging. I wouldn't have changed anything about the movie. I thought it was perfect.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed watching it. I think that they slipped some stuff in there for sure on multiple different levels, which we'll get to as we're breaking down the movie, but they definitely slipped a lot of stuff in there. And I'm surprised that the movie didn't do better because it's absolutely hilarious, in my opinion.
I agree, and I think it was a kind of before its time. It's kind of become a cult classic a little bit. It was very innovative, I think, in regards to the way things were being shot, comparatively speaking. At the time, there was, and that was one of the things that became that issue with Mr. Mike Myers, the diva. There was the director wanted to start doing all these. He's every day he would set up a track to move the camera on and do all these motion shots with the camera instead of just sitting in one spot. And Mike Myers would see the track and go right back to his trailer every day. So they had some Mexican standoff, or I guess Canadian standoffs. He's Canadian. They had some Canadian standoffs over these matters, but it is interesting that go ahead.
I was just gonna say there are parts of the movie. I don't know, like the jokes would be like something that would be funny now, even.
Yeah, I think so. I think it still plays.
Yeah, I do too. I really do. It's like I said, I literally laughed out loud at a couple of parts, and yeah, I think it's hilarious.
Yeah, and this was Mike Myers' big film between Wayne's World and Austin Powers, and this is really the last time he plays Mike Myers, right? I mean, every time after this, he's always in the characters doing, that weird love guru, whatever the fuck that was, and so on and so forth in the numerous Austin Powers.
He's got characters, right? And like when I watched Austin Powers, I just, I loved the movies because I was a little kid when they were coming out and I thought they were funny, but I never thought of him as like a regular guy that could like look normal and just like tell funny jokes. So I always looked at him as like fat bastard or like.
There you go.
Uh-oh.
I'm glad you pointed that out because I made that just on that same note. I kind of made note of that same thing when I rewatched it here, and it reminds me of Peter Sellers, back to the Manson family and people associated with that Cielo Drive residence that is currently owned by the executive producer of Full House, Jeff Franklin, and has been for 31 years. And as Marilyn Manson was residing back in it in 93, Marilyn Manson is residing in it today. You tell me what goes on there. I have no idea, but this is the Full House home that I was describing before. So,
I've got a bunch of history on it. It's super interesting.
This home? This one?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh shit. Okay. I didn't really get too much in the properties. I got lost, to be quite honest with you. I got lost in these characters again. So when, like you were saying there, Peter Sellers, the Panther, he quit playing any character as Peter Sellers, and then all of a sudden he just had a whole career as this Pink Panther thing, much like Mike Myers with his onslaught of characters after this film. So this seemed like a very, transitional point for him in that regard. And, again, Peter Sellers was into some weird sexual stuff there in Cielo Drive. In the Manson family business, I don't know, I wasn't there, but there's lots of stories. And he, much like Elvis, would hire security in the aftermath.
Well, I will say one of my biggest takeaways that I noticed from this movie is this movie may not have done very well, but it reminded me a lot of the plot for Addams Family Values.
Oh.
And that movie did great. So it just surprises me because So I Married an Axe Murder is way funnier actually than Adam's Family Values, but it has like the same plot of like the Black Widow weird thing.
You mean to tell me that MC Hammer doing an Adam's Family theme song rap was not successful?
I mean, more people know about Adam's Family Values than So I Married an Axe Murderer, which surprises the dog shit out of me because this movie is actually funny. Adam's Family Values is aight. You know, it's just aight.
Yeah, I agree with you, and it came out roughly the same time. I was just double checking. Adam's Family Values was November of '93 versus July.
Oh, and see, they have like really similar plots. That's interesting.
Yeah, I was gonna say they sound like they were competing projects, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's 710. That's not 7. It says it's 710 Ashbury.
Yeah, dude's on point right with that one. Thank you, dude.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting you say that because I got my story is going to focus around the Grateful Dead here in a moment. But before we do that, did you have something to say, Kane? Before we let Heidi introduce what her interest and takeaway was?
Sure, Julia. When you think about it, all of those people from Saturday Night Live were like us over there, the misfits. They called themselves the not ready for prime time players, and most of them came from SCTV, which was a small local channel in Chicago, and it was more like an acting school kind of, John Candy, and you have a lot of Canadians that came out of there, and so they were the regular guy look, from Easy Money, Lucy bowling shirt, brown mailman Oxfords, and that they're all the most unlikely lead characters. Chevy Chase, probably one of the more handsome of the bunch, but then you have Dan Aykroyd, did plenty of movies, and John Candy, obviously somebody. So I thought I'd make that point.
Dan Aykroyd,
Farley,
thank you,
probably.
sir. Dan Aykroyd, is this Tuesday Weld's friend who bought Process Churchy and Mama Cass's house? Is that the
dude?
Dan Aykroyd?
Come on, JJ, Jiminy.
We found that out on the Ghost Story episode, and it about started my period. I was so upset.
Blew my brain hole because here's the thing: he obviously frames. He uses the Magical Child bookstore.
We don't want that.
Yeah, that's not good.
I've heard I started ovulating.
He uses the Magical Child bookstore as his basis for Ray's Occult bookshop in the Ghostbusters films, which is the Son of Sam bookstore there, right? The Process Church related bookstore.
I want to get to Heidi. I just wanted to say this really, really quick. Bill Murray looks and acts like he's probably an asshole in real life. Dan Aykroyd has always been some kind of a sacred cow to me, where I've always thought he's such a stand-up guy, a no-nonsense guy. He's so cool. He's into all this esoteric, paranormal stuff. I love the Ghostbusters. Right. He's so funny. To find out that he could have like sinister links to stuff, or that he's really a douchebag in real life. I mean, I almost felt like I needed to like go on a fasting journey with my heart and just like reconfigure life. I've always loved him so much.
I hear you.
Somebody said they ran into Dan Aykroyd while he was drunk and he was an asshole.
Oh,
I had a very similar experience when I discovered the Grateful Dead was a CIA front operations, because we'll get to it after Heidi. One of my biggest interests in this film was at the very same time this film came out, I had just gotten into the Dead. So, and Heidi, what did you get interested in this film about back in July of '93, and what did you take away recently when seeing it again?
I was a huge fan of Mike Myers back then, so I literally was so excited to see this movie back in the day with my ex-husband. Ew, that part's not a great memory. But right, we went and saw this.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like a good takeaway, huh? That's the one to leave there at the theater.
Yeah, that part wasn't good. But I will say this is a movie that me and my kids have watched so much that we literally quote it all the time. My one daughter's boyfriend, he doesn't do movies, and he's always like, "What the hell are you people talking about?"
How do you not do movies?
I know. We do the movie quotes constantly.
Is he an NPC person? You should.
He doesn't have an internal monologue. He does not have an internal monologue.
Tell
Julia.
her to get the fuck away from him. He's a cyborg. person.
He's sweet, but he doesn't have the internal monologue for sure. He thinks we're crazy because we do. He's like, what?
Oh yeah, we're crazy.
I
Okay.
know, sad. I was like, what? You don't really. I'd never met somebody that really didn't have it, but
I love
yeah.
film. I love movies.
Yeah.
There's probably not a Purge that goes by where Kane and I aren't, Schindler's List to each other or some other movie references. So, and I'm sure you all see me because y'all join me for film reviews, see me how much I love film by, seeing how much knowledge I have on the subject. I'm sure, but
yeah, I love them. I just
it's always
now
been my
watching
thing,
it's different. It's so different when you see all the things they slip in and like all of the new stuff. You're like, wow. You know how like Julia was saying she like heard he was an asshole and that her like literally, and you do like if you hear something or you meet somebody and they disappoint you largely, that's why they say don't meet your heroes, right? Because you're like, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, but nowadays, yeah, I have a lot to say on it. I think it's very interesting on some of the things that were put out even back then with conspiracy theories, and that goes straight to the Pantavrates. I love it. But
I'm glad you said that. So that's you said you quote a lot of things and you very memorable scenes and stuff. So it sounds like your first interest was along these lines. Was it along these lines of the conspiracy theories? Maybe not when you first saw it. Was like, was that a big takeaway for you?
For me, it was just all funny. Like back then, you have to remember I wasn't the same person. So back then I didn't think anything of it. But now, back then I was just like, that was so great. And I couldn't believe that nobody liked it. I was like, what are you talking about?
I'm with you. I can't believe nobody liked this one. It's so funny.
I thought it was.
Were not fans, right?
Yeah. They really shot it down and it is low key funny unless it's like certain parts, like with the dad and stuff, he's actual funny. But the little things always got me. I mean, I always just thought it was the little things, not, head go get my pants. Like that's hilarious. But there's other things that are really funny that
when they go tour the prison. Oh my God.
Oh, poor Philly boy.
Hilarious.
Yeah.
Y'all are describing some of my favorite comedy scenes in 90s cinema right now. And on that note, I can't, and while you mentioned the prison scene, it would do us no justice unless we played it.
Phil Hartman.
Close it up.
Yes,
Vicky.
sir. Oh, this scene's great. That is a great scene.
I actually have a bunch of conspiracy stuff.
I have stuff on that Pantaveret after Julia.
Well, actually, okay. I don't want to get ahead of myself.
Yeah, let's hold that. I just want to play the scene for you. We'll watch it again. Trust me. That's my favorite scene. Absolutely. So
okay, cool.
Let's hold that to unpack that scene here when we get to the details of it. But that is, if I may add, my biggest takeaway is from that scene when rewatching it. I was like, you know what? There's a process factor to this because again, that Lyndon LaRouche rubbish nonsense, as she says, right? So. This is, again, Lyndon LaRouche was part of Iran-Contra, friends with Oliver North, and he starts whistleblowing everybody, including the Process Church. And then the Process Church's attorney, John Markham, gets hired by the U.S. Attorney's Office by Tuesday Weld's cousin, Bill Weld, and then they prosecute Lyndon LaRouche.
So crazy how that ties back. I didn't even catch that.
Do you know where John Markham lived at this time?
Where?
In the
San
90s?
Francisco?
In 1992, when this film was made, John Markham lived in San Francisco.
Damn. JJ coming in with the bar.
That was my biggest takeaway there.
Wow. Yeah.
But when this movie first came out, like I said, I was just getting into weird shit. Oh, I'm sorry. Heidi, did you have any more comments on your biggest takeaway there from your rewatching?
Oh, no. Just on the regular stuff later. No. I'm good.
Sounds like you got some real barn burners on these homes. I'm glad y'all looked at that because I didn't get to my analysis anywhere on the properties there, but I do look forward to it. So when I was 13, when that movie came out, I was just, like I said, I had just gotten a priesthood in the Mormon business and was, getting interested in different ideas, no longer monsters and aliens and stuff, but, these conspiratorial topics I found out about from this film, right? And obviously not Process Church, that's more recent stuff, but, the idea of this Illuminati or Pantaveret type of deal. And then San Francisco was quickly becoming my favorite thing in life because I just discovered the Grateful Dead the summer prior, and I had this giant poster covering an entire wall of my bedroom. I mean, it was like 7 foot by like 5 feet or some nonsense. And, so that movie came out, I was like, this is, I really think is this one moment in my life where I literally fell in love with the city of San Francisco, because I've spent a lot of time in that city. Two of my brothers, my dudes from the Air Force, my fellow garbage can dudes, they live out just north and south of there. So we usually convene on San Francisco every year for many years, and to for our garbage can dude invasions and whatnot. But I between the Grateful Dead and a lot of other factors, this film and other things, I've had a great interest there in the city of San Francisco, and I've spent a lot of time there. Never lived there, but spent a lot of time there. So this film's always had a special place for me as a result of those kind of factors, because again, it came out right at the same time I just really discovered San Francisco. So, and it's I would call this the best San Francisco film. I'm going to go on a limb and say that I mean, there's a number of good ones. Zodiac was a good one, right? I think, and maybe even American Graffiti could be considered in that department. But
American Graffiti. Holy shit, dude. That's one of my all-time favorite movies in my life.
Yeah.
And also
that's a San Francisco film.
Yep.
Well, it stars Mackenzie Phillips. Hello, Mamas and the Papas.
Wasn't she 13? Wasn't she 13?
She was 13, and we all know about her and her past with her little incestuous stuff with her daddy.
Holy shit. You just blew up my brain hole, because I took a note of something earlier on this same topic that I totally forgot about. And I don't know if it exists anymore, but I pulled up something connecting this film, George Hodel, and something else. And you just mentioned
Black
Mackenzie
Dahlia?
Phillips. Well, it was actually written by Steve Hodel, whatever this blog post was, his son. So Steve Hodel's sister would later take in Mackenzie Phillips after she's been getting diddled by her dad, right? Because Steve Hodel's sister, daughter of George Hodel, the alleged Black Dahlia murder by his own son, the former San Francisco police detective. Well, so there's your Mackenzie Phillips Black Dahlia connection right there.
Wasn't Black Dahlia murdered in and around the San Francisco area, or am I making that up?
Would have been Los Angeles, ma'am. Los Angeles. I believe George.
Okay, Los Angeles.
Well, here's a Bob Cocaine Evans connection. I believe George Hodel was living in the infamous Frank Lloyd Wright Mayan home at the time, a home that would later be occupied by Bob Cocaine Evans.
Dude, what the fuck?
Well, there was a direct connection to Bob's crew and that crew. So John Huston, his protege was Jack Nicholson. That was Bob's BFF. You may recognize him here in this picture as the Muppet on the left, the far left Muppet. That'd be Jack Nicholson. That was their crew.
Left Muppet.
The green Muppet, that's Jack Nicholson. Next to Roman Polanski, Bob Cocaine Evans, and none other than Charles Manson. But yeah, that's an interesting connection, though. You see these Mackenzie Phillips connections, right, with the American Graffiti. She's going into the same. Again, we're piecing things together from the outside looking in, and we're describing things somewhat disparately in doing so with these parapolitical matters. And it's a lot more. I think that what we're discovering over time and more information and analyzing these things, Julia, is that and Heidi both, we often discuss these parapolitical matters, that it's becoming a smaller and smaller circle of folks, right? It's not a huge network.
That, sir, is the truest statement of the evening. Especially like when you really like with the stuff you've been doing with the Cocaine Bob. And then when we talked about OJ, when we talked about, it's like they keep showing up, these assholes. They're punching a time clock or something. It's like, okay, let me check into this fucking weird thing that I shouldn't have anything to do with.
I appreciate where your head's at there, Julia, because you just gave me a nice plug for next Wednesday's Operation GCD Live, an esoteric and occult film review of the 1987 cinematic masterpiece, Lethal Weapon, which the plotline of that film describes Bill Colby's wet dreams come home. So Bill Colby, the CIA director, invents Operation Gladio. He invents the Phoenix program, the program to kill assassins. He invents the Air America drug trafficking, all part of the Material Assistance Command of Vietnam, all brought to you by Bill Colby. And Bill Colby's son just happened to be one of the primary witnesses for the state of California against the case of murder of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman, in the case against Orenthal James Simpson. So why is Carl Colby one of the primary witnesses, and why is he living next door to a drug trafficking operation with Nicole Brown Simpson and a manager of the mafia Italian restaurants that owned Italian restaurants that Goldman worked at? Why is Carl Colby? Well, it always goes back to Colby here. So that's going to be next week, folks. But I appreciate the inadvertent teeing up that for me.
Anytime.
So
can I add one thing there, JJ?
You may. Is it a jam? Are you going to play us a tune?
Yeah, I was actually for someone.
Does this one go out to the one you love? Is that what you're saying?
It's a lesson to me. No, Touch of Grey? Nobody?
I love Touch of Grey. That was the Grateful Dead's only number one or only top 10 hit, strangely enough.
Well, I think Casey Jones charted also, but it didn't get number one for sure. Van Halen also never had a number one till 84.
You stop it, sir. Casey Jones never made a chart. Don't make me.
It must have been somewhere on the Billboard as far as classic albums.
Well, I mean,
of all time.
Don't get me wrong. I enjoy the song.
But I wanted to add one more film to the mix as far as San Francisco goes, and there's probably a couple in his repertoire, but Miss Doubtfire obviously would be.
There you go.
One of
I knew you were going to say. I knew you were going to say that. I knew you were going to say that.
And I also know that you have some beef on that one too.
Well, I mentioned it in our previous episode when we covered the Ghost Story movie because the main character that Robin Williams portrays is based on a real life person who was molesting babies at the McMartin preschool.
Yeah, you were saying exact replica, right?
Exact replica. Down to the earrings, necklace, everything about the person is. So I mean, it's like a hilarious joke to them. Mrs. Doubtfire is a baby rapist from McMartin in the San Francisco area.
Yeah, she looks. I know, right? Isn't it crazy how identical that is? When you made that comparison, I was like, "Get out of town, Julie." That's spot on.
Have you seen the side by side on that, JJ?
I have. I'll pull it up in a second. Do you know who did not prosecute that case? That would be Ira Reiner, Charles Manson's personal friend.
Also somehow connected with OJ.
He was part of the propaganda campaign on the media. Yeah, when we first started seeing all that propaganda campaign. I didn't mean to do that. We first started seeing all that propaganda campaign of, the OJ did it, like we're seeing with Brian Koberger right now. Yeah, Ira Reiner was one of those first media pundits out there. Yeah, he just got out of the DA's office. Oh, here we go. While I bring up that quick comparison there, here's that George Hodel, Herb Kane, Zodiac, and the San Francisco Chronicle connection. So we see the San Francisco Chronicle comes up here in this film. That is the big part of that Zodiac tale, right? And Herb Kane, the editor, who's part of that whole Zodiac situation, right? The letters and the whole situation back there in 1969 that was going on at the same time as the Manson family murders down in Los Angeles. This is San Francisco, simultaneously speaking. But Herb Kane's the guy who invents the word beatnik.
Ooh. Well, and my theory on the Zodiac is that it was potentially multiple assailants, but one of them had to be Michael Aquino.
We can get onto that conversation later, ma'am. There definitely is a team of assailants. I went over one of those assailants, the man in the hood at Lake Berryessa this past Sundays on my Operation GCD Sundays, the case of Edward Wayne Edwards. Because the man on September 27th, 1969, wearing what appears to be an Aleister Crowley-like magical hood, filming what appears to be a snuff film on the shores of Lake Berryessa in the murder of one young woman and the attempted murder of a man. That man would go on to describe in great detail in the report filed by the Napa County Sheriff's Office, because folks want to shitcoat this today, filed by the Napa County Sheriff's Office, and the statements made by the man in the hood all happened in Edward Wayne Edwards' life. Just they happened in 1959, not 1969. He escaped the Deer Lodge prison in Montana. That's a very specific thing to say. He killed a guard. There was 2 guards killed when Edwards escaped that prison in 1959 and stole a car and headed to Mexico. That was the next 2 statements by the man in the hood. He stole a car and was headed to Mexico. So it's definitely a team. And Edward Wayne Edwards, I assure you, is on that team. He's the most diabolical serial killer in American history, and one most folks probably never heard of.
Well, that's a great point. I do think one of them was Michael Aquino, at least for the taxi cab driver.
There's a strong argument for a lot of these things, ma'am. I agree, and we're happy to have these conversations with you on a future show. But you're spot on with the team of Zodiacs for sure. And if I two more quick notes on that, if you've noticed, or one quick note, I'm sorry, if you notice, one of the things that the Zodiac wrote in his letters that he got his rocks off killing folks. And Edward Wayne Edwards, to date, in any cold cases, his DNA has never come up. The only time his DNA came up was in 2009. His daughter was watching a television program on Investigation Discovery, I believe it was, cold case murder, that occurred in Wisconsin back in 1980, 29 years prior. And she says she saw it. She immediately recognized that was a town that she lived in at the time, that her father took her to that exact field where the murder occurred, and that they fled town in the days after that. She calls those law enforcement authorities up there. She gives her DNA. It comes as a match to a semen stain left on a pair of jeans on the female victim that apparently Edward Wayne Edwards, he got his rocks off killing folks, just like the Zodiac said. And there was no rape. He never raped anybody. His crimes were never sex. He never raped anybody. They were almost always lovers' lanes, almost always, just like the Zodiac. So a lot to be said with Ed. I think he's more of a general in this whole outfit of a hand of death cult type situation. Not getting too far off topic because we are talking about serial killers tonight and San Francisco, but the tales of Henry Lee Lucas and Otis Toole, I would argue, are really the machinations of a network that Edward Wayne Edwards ran. And every time he was in prison, the murder rate went down in America. So just saying.
That's so interesting.
Yep. And he knew Charles Manson, and he knew Otis Toole, and he knew a lot of folks. I don't want to get distracted.
I think you're right. I was just going to say, I think a lot of them knew each other. I think there was like some kind of weird Sandman convention every year where they all fucking met up and compared notes and shit. But
you ain't kidding, because in 2003 they had a Zodiac conference in San Francisco where the guy that held it thought the Zodiac killer would show up. There's a guy pictured in those photographs at that conference that looks identical to Edward Wayne Edwards, and he's sitting next to Charles Manson's friend, Larry Melton. So,
they always have these conferences, right? It's like they had the Ted Bundy conference, and then they love to do that stuff.
But take note of what we're discussing here, right? San Francisco serial killers, right? And the Zodiac's killing in 69 at the same time the Manson's killing in Los Angeles in 69. And Ed knew Charles. They'd known each other since 52. Him and Manson were friends since 52, and they were on a prison on a mound in Ohio at Chillicothe Federal Reformatory. And he knew, so obviously it seems like he may have known Larry Melton. So Larry Melton is celebrating seemingly with the portion of the Zodiac killer guys. He's part of the Manson team, and they're all celebrating at a Zodiac conference appears in this photograph in 2003. It's kind of sick if you look at it that way, but that's the way I look at it. So when we talk about serial killers and they all know each other, I think that should be considered, because it is this. We were talking Laurel Canyon, and I know Kane's a big musician, so he's all about some of this Laurel Canyon stuff. We've discussed that as well on his show. Right, Kane? The Laurel Canyon, the whole fake music scene, the military kind of psyop scene, right?
I wouldn't go with fake. I would go with sort of manufactured by Providence. Those military leaders were based out of those operations. Their operations were based out of that area. Their kids grew up there. It was kind of a time when there was a lot of open doorness I would more say along the lines of they were kind of the bastard childs. They were the outcasts of their family, and they actually, all got together and created great music. That can't be denied. And it attracted more great music. And so
I disagree. I think that they were 100%.
You wouldn't say that Hendrix and the Eagles made great music?
I would say Phil Spector and the Wall of Sound did.
I'm saying that they weren't just like cool guys that got together.
The Wall of Sound had nothing to do with the Eagles. They never played on an Eagles record. They at all. Maybe the Beach Boys and the Monkees. But when you're talking about Hendrix And the Doors, they made their own music. Ray Manzarek was a brilliant writer and keyboard player.
I won't dispute you on the Doors, but
all
I would
talented voices like Linda Ronstadt and the list goes on forever.
They're all CIA.
But look at okay, here's a good example for you.
Well, if I hold on, if I just
hold on, let me just finish my thought. Hold on,
wait.
Let me just finish my thought. Wait, 1 second. Janis Joplin was completely disassociated with her family in Texas, right? And so
she says, I don't believe any of that stuff, though.
Jim
I don't
Morrison
believe anything that's been. I don't believe anything that they've said about any of that. They lie constantly, and we're just supposed to believe whatever bullshit story that Jim Morrison said his dad was dead and he communed with Native American spirits. Like, no fucking way. I'm sorry, I don't believe any of that.
If I may though on your analysis,
admiral in the Navy.
If I may though on your analysis of how these folks started there in Laurel Canyon, because it is relevant to tonight's tale. That is the reason why I brought it up. It may seem like a tangent, but tonight's tale again is the Beatniks. And again, Herb Kane from the Chronicle there in San Francisco, he coins the term Beatnik, and the Beatniks are these proto hippie movement. That this movement out of Laurel Canyon moves up to Monterey for the music festival. It's birthed out of Laurel Canyon, all these bands. So these early bands, Kane, I would dispute that the Birds. Again, I know you're pointing out some musically talented folks like Ray Manzarek and gang. I'm it's fine, but what I'm getting at is the movement started in a manner that was manufactured, where all these people were shipped into that location. Their parents weren't stationed out there, right? Like Gail Sloatman, Frank Zappa's wife. Again, I know the movement became something different, and I honestly don't know the Eagles publishing book other than that they have Anton LaVey apparently in one of their album covers in Hotel California, but they all move out there. Phil Spector's Wall of Sound is the band for the Beach Boys. Seemingly some Beatles albums. I don't know about Hendrix for certain. Definitely the Byrds, Crosby, Stills and Nash. I mean, this is the music that we hear on those albums, the Mamas and the Papas. Most of the Process bands, overwhelmingly, it seems, the Mamas and the Papas, the Beatles, Phil Spector's Process, so Sonny and Cher come out of that mix. So, I do think there is something to be said there, and obviously the Monkees. But the Monkees, see, that's the thing about this manufactured nature of how we look at things from the outside as well. So Peter Tork, Jack Nicholson, speaking of Cocaine Bob, and Jimi Hendrix used to hang out at Peter Tork's house in Laurel Canyon together every day. And Jimi Hendrix went on tour with the Monkees and played music with them and played on the music of the film that Jack Nicholson would direct to their stuff. So I don't know. The whole movement to me seems extremely manufactured.
I agree in it to a sense. Like I said, I think it's by providence for two things, because in the 60s there, you did have a lot of military families based in San Diego and the Los Angeles area. And you have what became a blend of people, because you have Hendrix, who when he dropped out was honorably discharged from the army, went to New York and hangs out with the Isley brothers, right? And he learned all of his chops from.
Yes, sir. I'm familiar with these bedtime tales.
And so he cut his teeth in New York City, and then couldn't make it in the United States. Goes over to England, and that's where the European connection comes in. So then you bring in Eric Clapton, you bring in Jeff Beck, you bring in the Who, and now you have
who?
So what I'm saying is you have a side that is bullshit, like the Osmond family. You have Sonny and Cher. You have the Monkees. You have the whole what was that show? Schindler's List with Goldie Hawn.
Oh, dude, Chips. You're a big Eric Estrada fan, right? We're talking about Chips.
A huge Eric Estrada fan. I was actually pulled over and
my entire life
by
after
Chips before. If you could say that.
I've modeled my entire life after Eric Estrada.
But you have what I'm saying is you have a blend of hardworking, extremely talented musicians who again are disassociated with their families, and then you have a manufactured Hollywood thing with the Phil Spector and the Wall of Sound and the Tower of Power, and all these musicians that were just, okay, just go in there, cut that record. And then those were the people, the Beatles, the Monkees, they were getting these huge stadium tours. And so what you had to do to get your name and to get on these tours, to make a big name for yourself, was open for those bands. So Hendrix would open for the Monkees. And it's like, what? I mean, it makes no sense at all. But, and then I think, because when you're talking about talent, when you talk about the Byrds, you're talking about Neil Young, you're talking about, what's his, Crosby, Stills, and Nash, and
who's Neil Young?
All those guys.
Neil Young?
Undeniably talented, up into their
Rick
80s,
James, buddy?
making great music. So the talent is without a doubt
disagree
there.
Yeah.
But I do want to say, like, I get your point. I just think you need to read Strange Scenes Inside the Canyon, and then we could talk more about it.
Yeah, because when you move Neil Young in from Toronto, who's doing a band called the Minor Birds with Rick James. Cocaine's a hell of a drug, Rick James, bitch. That Rick James, right? Again, it's the machinations were obviously not apparent then. They seem apparent now, right? But like, my point is, this movement moves out of this beatnik movement. They mash them together in that Summer of Love up in Monterey from the San Francisco thing, and that's why the Grateful Dead, who came from their first concert in Watts down there by Compton in South Central LA, as the Warlocks, they're embedded as a San Francisco thing under the same guys in this Haight-Ashbury era of Charles Manson, of folks like, again, so on and so forth, all these other political machinations of the process that are going on there. And it's the beatniks that bring us that. It's Herb Kane from the San Francisco Chronicle who coins the term beatnik. And it is all these folks like Ken Kesey, Allen Ginsberg, William Burroughs, Jack Kerouac. They literally launch this movement we're discussing, of the music that is mashed into this movement that comes from Laurel Canyon preceding this, right? Because we're talking about 65 through 67 where this music is being developed, really 64 really, with the Byrds and Bobby Beausoleil and Kenneth Anger, huge Crowleyites and part of the Manson family that predate Manson in that era. So there's an element of this cult activity that predates Charlie getting out of prison there in 67, simultaneously to his buddy Edward Wayne Edwards, the possible Zodiac killer, by the way. They're both let out on parole at the same time. That seems convenient, but we look at this beatnik situation, and it's all CIA documented. Kerouac, Ken Kesey, Allen Ginsberg, William Burroughs, the Scientologist. We got a lot of kid dealers in this group too. It's very strange. Kerouac's a fucking Nazi, by the way. I don't know if anyone knew that one. That was kind of surprising.
Kerouac was what Mike Myers said that he used for his inspiration for the film. Just so you guys know.
Ooh, that's a good tie back. That's a
a fun fact, Heidi. Thank you.
Yes.
Now, are you all familiar with the King Kill 33 theory of James Shelby Downard and the alleged assassinations there of John F. Kennedy? That's Jack Kerouac's friend. Him and James Shelby Downard were BFFs.
Downard's book is really good with all of that. Yeah, super, informative.
Kane, have you ever heard these ideas of the mystical toponymy and assassinations of JFK in a very esoteric psychodrama led on by these same intelligence agencies that we're describing as the machinations behind the beatniks and the Laurel Canyon movement?
When I lived in San Diego, my bosses at the liquor store I worked at were brothers. And
I remember these guys. I like these guys.
Yeah, Tom and Steve.
Yep.
And the place was called the La Jolla Wine Shop and Spirit Shop. I'm sorry. And so they used to share with me all the stories. And Steve was actually a musician. And Tom was a musician, great guitar player. So he knew a lot of these people. So here, I'll just to wrap up what I was saying is you had these military connections, definitely. A lot of these musicians had high level, coincidentally, military grade parents, let's call it. And so what I think is you have, just like you do today where you bring in the talent. Am I right? And so then you indoctrinate. And so what I think happened is when you talk about the Grateful Dead and a CIK, I think that that's probably the connection with hallucinogenics, as far as maybe it was experimented on by government agencies. Somehow it gets to the kids, then it just spreads like wildfire. You have to look at like Molly used to be prescribed by psychiatrists for couples that were having issues in the bedroom.
What'd you call me, sir? Did you call me Molly?
I just
no. I like I do, and I don't mean to interject. I do. I just want to try to keep us back on track a bit, but I do like where your head's at, and I appreciate those thoughts. And I used to be a lot like what you're saying is where I used to be a lot on these subjects. And I'm not saying it's due to your lack of information or education. I'm not saying that to be a dick about it or anything. I'm just saying, like, over time, I have developed new thoughts when I do learn new information. And I assure you, sir, when the founder of the Tavistock Institute's son is the manager and music publishing president of the Grateful Dead's music publishing company and best friends with Jerry Garcia, we're not looking at an organic movement.
100. I agree.
We're not looking at it. And again, it pains me to say that because I was a huge Grateful Dead fan. It's strange to say that, to hear that a fellow that spent 5 years in combat was a Grateful Dead fan. I assure you, it was weird to folks even over there when I'm wearing tie-dyes. You know what I mean? So,
were you really?
Oh, I was huge Dead. Yeah, even in my 20s for sure. Yeah.
I just want to say before we get back to the movie, these comments are fucked up today. I mean, you've got like a 50-50 split of people saying like really useful information, and then another like 3 or 4 people who are just being absolutely retarded.
I see. I don't know what this comment is, but they're out of here. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just now catching up. I see some wild comments. Actually, I can't do anything about that one.
I was just like, we were all talking, and I looked over, and I was like, "What the fuck is this?"
I don't know who that is.
What were they saying? What was it? I didn't even see.
It's like big black cocks, and I have.
Well,
a
it's
big
not. We don't need
nose
to give them a further platform.
Gross.
It's on. I just sent y'all a note on in the back though. How to take care. I can't do anything on my end, but I'm way behind on comments. I'm way behind. So where were we at before we were talking about
Heidi
British Broadcasting
something.
Corporations?
She mentioned Mike Myers' inspiration.
Yeah, Jack Kerouac.
Yeah, that was.
Jack Kerouac. Thank you.
Don't forget about Hunter S. Thompson. Also as well. Which I think is another talented person that worked hard to where he was getting, if you want to say he was indoctrinated. That's the way I see it, that there's a bigger element.
Strangely enough, he's friends with Jack Kerouac, I think, through Nazi channels. I mean, they have some right-wing extremist circles going around Jack Kerouac, James Shelby Downard, and folks like Thompson. So one of the guys, I can't think of his name right now, he was with Thompson on his 1972 campaign, I think, with Nixon. One of these guys in that crew was one of Kerouac's friends there with James Shelby Downer was in that crew with. That's what I'm saying. I just, and then Hunter S. Thompson, he's guarding the Esalen Institute while they're building it. He's the security guard there. I mean, let's get out of town, folks. Again, I have no proof, but I buy into the stories of all the snuff films that he was allegedly filming and stuff like that. So I don't find him to be a savory character, Kane, unfortunately.
Who's that? I'm sorry?
Thompson.
Don't even get me started on that guy.
He let Processy and Johnny Depp live in his house. I mean, I don't have a card-carrying member or a statement from Hunter S. Thompson that he was a process guy, but he walks like a process guy, talks like a process guy. He's probably a process guy.
My point is, I don't think that the whole movement is something that people were born into. I think it's something when you conglomerate in this area, there's different options that you have. Scientology, process. But I just wanted to mention, Julia, that you blew my mind when what was that before we were talking about Oh man, I don't want to forget it now.
You better come up with an answer. You know what's coming.
I know what's coming. Shut me down. Just shut me down.
Was it
Schindler's
about was it about Mackenzie Phillips or?
No, it was before that, darn it. Because one of my platforms is the prettier the face, the darker the heart. And so when you said that about the baby extraction stuff, you can't sit on this YouTube channel right now and say, what were we talking about again?
Schindler's List.
And so you can't say, oh, the Shriners, they have a dark agenda. There's just no proof. They do but look at the extremes that they go to for children and the access that gives you. And you have the Danny Thomas Foundation, those types of things that cater to kids are the possibly, you know what I'm saying?
No, I don't. Again, I hate to interject. I just want to try to keep on track here. And I know where your head's at, and I appreciate where your head's at. It's a very reasonable statement you're making. My trackpad on my computer jammed up for some reason. I don't know what's going on here. My point being is that we do have evidence of folks being born into this. We have evidence like Owsley, the bear, the dancing bear from the Grateful Dead. He's connected directly into this beatnik movement that I'm describing tonight, and it's a beatnik movement that we see celebrated throughout this entire film. That's kind of what I just want to bring it back in here. Is the term beatnik kind of gets into this Chronicle situation. We see a scene from the San Francisco Chronicle, which is again the heart of the Zodiac. Again, we're in a movie about a serial killer, so I don't think these things should be ignored. I think I somehow put comments on the screen, and I don't even know how I did that at this point in time, folks. So, I apologize, Julie, if I'm covering you up there as far as comments go.
It's okay. It's fine.
And it is with this beatnik movement we see again out of the Kerouacs, the Burroughs, et cetera, and Owsley. So Owsley comes out of the same movement. He's the chemist. He's born into a very elite line family like that, and he's a chemist for the LSD that's not stolen. I mean, it's intentionally it's documented that he's doing it for the CIA. He knew he was doing it for the CIA, and they're distributing it through Grateful Dead concerts, which is being managed by the founder of the Tavistock's son, who was friends with Jolly West. He set up the program that Jolly West would come take over at UCLA. Before Jolly West got there, he laid the groundwork, it seems. So we're talking all MK Ultra stuff. You know what I mean?
100.
So I think it's interesting. We see that highlighted here in the beatnik story, right? Because it is this beatniks, and we see the term beatnik being described as a combination of the term Sputnik and what was the other half of that? I don't remember. But we see them highlight. We see the beat poets, all right. All the places we see throughout the film, Mike Myers' character, right? It's all beat poets, right? And that's the whole underlying plot line, right? And then we see at one point that his presumably that's his younger brother, right? The kid from the Mighty Ducks, right? But like is Mike Myers' character's younger brother, Head. But they call his head Sputnik. You're gonna have to give me a second. I'm all jammed up on this end as far as
it's a virtual planetoid. It's got its own weather system.
Jammed. That's a great scene. And speaking of another film with kids that probably had some dark shit, is about Mighty Ducks. You know what I mean? Those kids didn't turn out right.
No, they did not. And there wasn't the main guy from The Sandlot in Mighty Ducks?
Yeah. So there's a lot of crossovers, and there's that one kid, Brock Pierce, who played the young Emilio Estevez, and he's a diddler and diddles other folks, and so on and so forth. He's part of that Den, that digital entertainment network that was owned by Geffen. He was John, the diddler that ran that operation. He was his young boy toy. Brock Pierce.
Wow.
He was Steve Bannon's guest at the last inauguration. Just saying. On that note, we see the beatniks being venerated throughout this entire film, throughout the poetry, the whole plot line of which I'll get to in a minute, because I want to ask y'all, what's Charlie McKenzie's job? How does he make money? But on that note, hold on one second. So we literally see the continued veneration in this film of the whole beatnik thing. And again, the beatniks turn into the hippies through the the direct connections of the Jack Kerouac and the Merry Pranksters, et cetera, in the Owsley situation, right? So, are you familiar with the Tuesday Weld factor in that environment? This beatnik hippie machinations, right? Where the beatniks meet the hippies. Are you familiar with the Tuesday Weld situation there, Julia?
Oh, well, she's involved in everything, isn't she?
She is indeed. Well, she's involved in the TV show that we see the first beatnik depicted. Gilligan from Gilligan's Island.
That's funny.
Yeah. Old Bob. I was about to call him Bob Denver for a second. It is Bob Denver, right? Bob
Denver's Gilligan.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, so he's the first. If I could find it here somewhere, he is the first. Here we go. He's the first beatnik we see. So this is the proto hippie movement. This is Tuesday Weld. She's in the same TV show, The Many Loves of Dobie Gillis.
Dobie Gillis.
We're introduced to it. You know this one?
I know Dobie Gillis. Hell yeah.
Yeah. Well, you sir, please tell us, what is The Many Lives of Dobie Gillis?
It was a beatnik comedy with Gilligan, and an interesting fact about the captain wore that captain's outfit for the rest of his life. Like, he would go to bars dressed as the captain, and people would buy it, and till the day he died. Donna Wells, not pictured there.
Sir, is this a Gilligan story or a Dobie Gillis story?
I'm sorry, I got off track there.
Or is this an ex-girlfriend story? Did you date her?
Well, my mom and I went to go see Donna Wells at the Showboat Dinner Theater.
Oh.
And she was in a play there. She was Mary Ann on Gilligan's
Island.
Yeah.
Because they had to do that because they never got royalties for that show. Bob Denver was a radio host.
They were very broke.
Yeah, he was a radio host.
Return to Gilligan's Island is actually one of the most underrated movies of all time.
Well, back to Mr. Gilligan here, who I first knew to be, before Gilligan's Island, I knew him to be a radio host in Southern West Virginia. So that's what happens when these people like old Cocaine Bob and Phil Spector and gang take all the money from the talent in which they produce things with. That's my take on that. But we see Krebs' character, Maynard Krebs, portrayed by actor Bob Denver, begins a series as a beatnik with a goatee, hip slang language, and generally unkempt bohemian appearance. Again, this is where the proto-hippie movement begins, and there is a direct lineage with all of these things. And again, topic for another day that I know Julia and I's one of our favorite characters that we both have interest in is the actress Tuesday Weld, and she's in this series, and she's also the connecting principle amongst the hippie and beatnik movement, strangely enough. But it is the beatniks we find in the film, highlighted throughout the whole film, right? And on that note, let's do a roundtable here on this question. We see we're introduced to Charlie McKenzie, Mike Myers' character, as we saw in the trailer, right? And he's a poet, right? Which does, in the context of the 90s, doesn't make a lot of sense, but in the context of the 50s and the beatnik movement, that was what these fellows did, right? But how does Charlie McKenzie live? Like, what's his job? Like, they don't really tell us, right? Like, what are your all's thoughts on how he makes money?
He was like a writer or something like that, right?
Who's he writing for?
I
they
think
don't really
he
tell
had
us,
a
right?
sports column or something like that, or I don't remember. That's a good question, dude.
Do they even mention it?
No, here's the deal. You know how many times I watched this film before I even asked that question? I watched this film at least it made the Century Club before I said, you know what? Wait a second. Because it was after I started learning about all these beatniks and the hippies and the machinations behind the same, right? Because again, I love San Francisco. I did not want to hear these CIA machinations of the Grateful Dead and these activities, but facts are facts. In my opinion, I calls them how's the season, but I watched it so many times. What does he do? They don't tell us, do they?
Mm-mm.
Well, he does stand-up poetry.
Well, that's a nod back to the beatnik movement. That's what they did, right? Those were the beatnik poets.
So,
right?
What is your theory?
Well, his best friend's a detective, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he seems like he's some sort of narc or COINTELPRO informant. Infiltrating the scene just like the beatniks did, right? Mm-hmm. Project Chaos, FBI, COINTELPRO, whichever you want to cut it. But it's the same thing the beatniks did. They were doing the same activities. We see that with Charlie McKenzie.
Well, because at the very beginning of the movie, when he's talking to his friend and he's like, you look like a pimp. That's you look like an undercover police officer that
Yeah.
trying to look like a pimp, and he was like, I am an undercover police officer that's trying to look like a pimp. So
that's why I made that Chips reference before, also, because what I really meant was not Chips, but the other one, Starsky and Hutch, because he says he looks like Huggy Bear, and he does. Why is he dressed like a 70s pimp as an undercover detective in the 1990s? What is that? What is that a throwback to? What are they saying and doing? Mike Myers rewrote this whole script.
Yes,
So
there was a
that is
huge problem with it. Was like a huge. It almost went to court.
Yeah,
or did.
So.
Yeah.
And if before we start unpacking, did you have any other comments on what his job was? Did anyone else pick up on anything there, Heidi?
I didn't.
So we see the plot line of the serial killer play out around the story of Charlie McKenzie, this beat poet, whose best friend Anthony LaPalgia is a Starsky and Hutch Huggy Bear guy. So that's what I'm saying. Like, they don't tell us what he's doing for a job. He's always with this police detective. I mean, you just put 2 and 2 together at that point. Again, I calls them How's the Season, but we see the whole narrative unfold around this kind of plot line right here. I just want to point out that, sometimes, I'm not saying all the time, but sometimes, just as they were stating there, you can find facts in these Weekly World News things, because that's where I learned about Nathaniel Bar-Jonah for the very first time out of the Weekly World News while standing in a grocery store in Great Falls, Montana, about a kid-diddling, psychopathic, cannibalistic, homicidal serial killer who murdered some folks there in the same town I learned it in, from an edition of the Weekly World News, strangely enough. So you can learn facts from the Weekly World News, but it is...
They also mentioned that in Men in Black, the first one, when he's training him, he's like, the real news comes from these. And it was like, where the something crashed in my yard and was wearing my husband like an Edgar suit or whatever. To me, I think they have to put like the fringe
tabloids
truth stuff in there. Yeah.
I think the premise is
for sure, right? For sure.
That he's a successful single guy, never been married, but is unable to find someone, and that's the whole quest. That becomes the quest of the film, and he falls in love with the girl.
Sure.
And then obviously I don't want to reveal the end, but
that is obviously there is some he's got some problems, right? But his mom describes to him that she's worried about him, that he can't maintain a girlfriend relationship. Again, I don't know how he's supposed to. What job does he have? She doesn't even know. They never discuss. When he's discussing with his parents, there's never a conversation about employment. I'm just pointing these things out because it took me hundreds of times to watch this before I even realized, what does this dude do for a living? How does this guy have money? His parents used to run a butcher shop. We learned that over the haggis, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we don't learn what
he worked in the butcher shop, so we knew he had one job, cutting meat for his
teenager. As a teenager.
I think they probably, if it was intentional or not, left it ambiguous to just let you, in your mind, imagine what a successful person is. That's kind of just assumed and established at the beginning of the movie. Mike Myers has his own place. He's got his, everything's together. The only thing that keeps Walter in his life is the whip.
I don't disagree with your assessment. That is a very accurate assessment of the plot narratives of the film, for sure. I question when I see gaps. Why didn't they describe that? What are they telling us when they don't describe something like that? Like, why does he drive that old busted ass car if he's got money?
Mm-hmm.
Where does he live? We don't ever see his house.
You don't want to miss. You want a perfect lead. That's why you always find in Hollywood movies they try to find that girl next door look that's pretty, but it just has the flaws where you feel like you had a chance. Like I had a chance.
Is he homeless? Because Harriet's got a pretty big spot. He should move in there, right? We don't see his home, do we?
Got the Charmed House.
That's his parents, though, right?
Oh no, the Charmed House is where they went on their honeymoon. Charmed House, I believe, is their honeymoon.
But we don't see his house, though, right?
Right.
That's a good point.
So as I'm going to play the next clip about the serial killer, then we can start unpacking the narratives, the characters in these locations, if you all don't mind. Classic.
I love it.
The Kane's
Where's his mask? Where's his mask? Right.
So I just think there's a lot more to, again,
warrior.
like that scene and other scenes. But so what about the characters? We saw. I actually forgot to pull up a clip of the actual serial killer, but I'll pull up the ending clip here to show us here after we go over the characters. But out of these different scenes that y'all noticed, the houses and the characters, Heidi, why don't you start us off on that? What are some of the biggest takeaways on the characters and the locations?
So I really focused in on some odd things because I figured like go on the outer spectrum there. And so this house was called the Dunsmire Hellman Estate.
Yeah,
And
the one in Oakland, right?
It's featured as the Pete's Corner Inn. Yeah, the inn. And so with this one, I found this really interesting with what's going on there. They actually bought it. So this Dunsmire guy bought it for his bride and died on his honeymoon. And that's basically what they're filming there. So that was kind of fun.
And then I'm glad you all picked up on that one. I got a picture of that in here somewhere. I'm just trying to find it.
Yes, and his wife actually died a little bit after that as well. It's been used for a lot of scary movies, including Phantasm in 1979, Burnt Offerings in 1976, A View to Kill in 1985, and there was like a bunch of other ones. So
that's a great movie. James Bond.
Burnt Offerings. That's kind of weird, right?
Offerings, 1976. Yes, very strange. And the room that they rented when they went there for their honeymoon was the Robbie Burns room. And that is a Freemasonic poet who's super into the occult back in the day. He is Scottish and was a member of the Coshalan. Let's see how to say it.
Do you know who else is a 32nd degree Scottish Rite Freemason?
Oh,
Michael Richards. We just saw him.
Oh,
wow.
I did not know that.
Yes.
Well, you
this
know,
guy was in like a deep, it's called the Coshalan Fencible member. He was that. And it's like a super occultic faction. So
AKA the Hard R Richards. Thank you, Wes H.
So super wild, but that was fun for me to kind of look at.
Hard end, but
yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
Oh, you're good. You're good. I just thought that was weird.
Scottish, it's crap.
Crap. Yes.
He needs to play Doc in Back to the Future. Kane, I agree. Kane would be a good Doc. There was now that you mentioned that there was actually a connection to this film and Back to the Future, and it'll come back to me. Oh yeah, I'm sorry. One of the Beatnik guys, Jack Servati, he serves in the Scientologist UFO aliens guy. That fellow. He's actually apparently the character basis for Doc Brown from Back to the Future, and he's part of the Beatnik movement as well from San Francisco. Just saying.
So these are a couple other random things that I had from.
Please.
They were part of the Wall, the Scottish Wall of Fame. And I just wanted to mention some of those if this is a good time for that, where it's part of the house, or should I wait?
Let's take a quick peek at that murder that went down here, right? What was that about?
Absolutely. Right? He just died. He got sick and died on his honeymoon, and so it was really odd.
He wasn't presumed murder then. Like
But it makes one wonder. This is really old, so would they know if it was a poisoning? And then we're watching this show where he thinks he's being poisoned, but also dies on his honeymoon. So that was weird. And then she gets the house, and she dies like very shortly after. It wasn't too many years later, so it was very strange. Yeah,
quite a property too, right?
Oh, beautiful. Gorgeous. It does weddings now, and it's like an Airbnb type wedding thing. So if anybody's getting married and you want a haunted house, because they do say there's paranormal activity there.
I was gonna say, I wonder if they run this thing as like a B&B or something that you could go stay at, because I would definitely go.
Yeah,
I would definitely go.
Let's go.
Yes, I would stay for sure.
Girls' night.
Yay. we can call Janet too.
Yes,
but yeah, it's spooky. Yeah, it's kind of a little bit spooky.
Oh. It is. It's kind of like right in Oakland, though, right? Haunted stuff.
It's not really out in the wilderness or nothing. It's kind of like right there, right?
No, it's weird. Yeah. So I thought that was kind of fun.
That's another interesting point as far as houses like this go. When you say they don't make them like this anymore, when you look at like the Chicago's World Fair there in the 20s,
it's actually I think it was a little bit before that, but yes.
like within a year, over a swamp, and then they just tore it right down. And even there's a lot of houses here from the 50s in Clearwater, Florida, and they're so well built that they're I mean, it makes modern construction, and you just wonder about when you look back at like the 1300s and 1600s with the beautiful cathedrals and stuff that they built. You wonder what they're not telling us for sure.
Well,
yeah, this was 1899 when it was built, just for reference.
House,
so.
Beautiful. It's hard to say it's a house. Now it's a B&B though, or whatever. Huh?
I'll tell you what they're not telling us is that's why Harriet and Charlie broke up, because they broke up right in front of this house, and they claim it's a full house, but not that day.
Different day.
So this is the house again. The scene in the film. I just want to bring it back to this before we go past it chronologically in the film. When they did get back together after he heard the Ralph Elliott thing, that Ralph Elliott scene was after he broke up with her in front of this house. Again, this is the Full House house. Back to the Cocaine Bob connections, if you will, and the Manson murders, if you will. Again, the guy that owns this Manson property, the Cielo Drive, is the executive producer. But what else do we see with that home? Did anyone else pick up anything else in that Dunsmore home?
Just that guy that they said they had that room, that the Robbie Burns room was that guy is like, seriously, you guys should look into that secret society. It's pretty woo. So really old.
All right, nice. So, did anyone else have any locations that they picked up on before we go into the conspiracy theory scene and some more of these characters?
My time to shine is definitely going to be the living room scene with the dad. That's going to be my time.
Me too. Yes, 100%.
Right. Without further ado, classic scene. I can watch it over again and over again. So Colonel Sanders, he's a
I sent you this. Yes, I had to. Or did you get it too? You saw this too?
Oh my God.
No, you sent that to me. Yeah.
Yes.
I was hoping you had some good details here, because this is a
fantastic with Colonel Sanders. This is a real picture of the church prophets that are like top echelon guys. It cracked me up so bad knowing that Colonel Sanders, actually, the very first Kentucky Fried Chicken ever made is in Salt Lake City. There was a guy that helped him named Pete Harmon, and he is the key piece for Kentucky Fried Chicken. He's helped advertise and run it. He's also the one that came up with finger looking good statement. I'm nervous to say that with the chat today. But anyways, yeah.
Chat's out there, out there on that edge.
Hopefully we fix that. And then also he owns so this guy, Pete Harmon, owned all of the Kentucky Fried Chickens in Utah, Washington, Nevada, and California. And he's a Mormon, and they were super good friends. They were best friends until he died. And well, one of them died. Colonel Sanders died first. And Colonel Sanders, just FYI, was a Freemason. Lodge 651, Henryville, Indiana.
Right?
Yep. So I just thought it was funny. They gave him a little homage right here. I wonder if that was for this Harmon guy, Pete Harmon. Maybe it was a nod to all the tithing he paid.
My one and only thing that I took away from that little speech was also about Colonel Sanders, which I find interesting that you picked that too, because I have watched a lot of movies where secret societies and people who run everything are mentioned. The Vatican and the Queen are dead giveaways, like everybody knows those. I did find it interesting that he mentioned the Gettys, because that's like a lesser known one. The Gettys do probably run everything, especially media. And
oil barons. Yes, the Getty oil barons.
Well, they employ Gavin Newsom. They're the people behind Gavin Newsom. The things in California right now are being brought to us by the Getty family through
the Gettys,
Newsom and his dad, the SS Nazi. Getty images.
Yeah. That would play right into controlling the media.
Yeah, they own a lot of shit.
So this is
you know what all those
interesting.
guys have in common. Sorry, Julia. Go back to that picture right there in the white suits, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
You know, you can see what they have in common is their wee beady eyes.
Yeah.
Good one. Good
They're
one.
Canes too. They're Canes. Don't miss that, right?
Are you all familiar with this fella?
Good point.
He's the guy that took over Colonel's KFC and made it what it was. John Y. Brown. He's a former governor of Kentucky. He took Cocaine Bob's third wife from him, Phyllis Diller, former Miss America. And he's the reason why they have decadent parties at the Kentucky Derby, because of all that cocaine. He was wrapped up in something called the Bluegrass Conspiracy with his attorney and best friend's son, Drew Thornton, is the guy that jumped out of that aircraft wearing $2,000 loafers, armed to the teeth with some submachine guns from Mitch Morbell and his Cobra arms, and had a bunch of cocaine strapped to himself. And that's what the bear found, and ate all that cocaine for Cocaine Bear. But that was John Y. Brown's buddies and gang there in Kentucky.
Your family is from Kentucky, isn't it, JJ?
I got some Kentucky people, yes, ma'am.
You do? I thought you had mentioned it before. Maybe I'm remembering that wrong. But
no, you remember correctly. Old Charles Manson and I are Maynards from Pikeville. I'm also
Pikeville. That's right. Because my family is also from actually all of my family is from the Appalachian Mountains in Kentucky.
Yeah.
So
what are we talking about? We're at.
So they grew up in, I think,
Hazard?
Butcher's Holler. It's
What
is it? My mom said it all the time, but now I'm forgetting.
I'm not familiar with that name, so I was gonna say I don't know. I'll say they're from Wise, Virginia, Logan County, West Virginia, or Pikeville, Kentucky. I'm related to like every county there. All those.
It's close to Pikeville, but it's not. I mean, it's close, but it's not Pikeville. But anyways, I grew up in Kentucky, and I've eaten at a million KFCs, right?
Yeah.
There was a bunch of KFCs in my hometown, and I had really only experienced KFC from Kentucky. And then when I moved and I had it other places, I do want to just say it tastes different. It tastes like they definitely have added some chemicals and shit to it. I've had something, because I've had KFC in multiple different states, and it all tasted really weird to me compared to the KFCs from actual Kentucky. I don't know, maybe there's franchise.
The Mormons ruined it.
You think so? Because I can tell, like, the franchise KFCs from like a chain KFC, like the chicken does taste different. Like they've done something to it.
They said that he was the one that made the ingredients for the special like spices. This guy from Utah, so maybe I don't know if that's just for his or their. I'm not sure.
Because I know that some are franchised, but anyways, I find it interesting that John Wayne Gacy actually married a woman whose father owned a bunch of KFC franchises, and he actually became the manager of a KFC, and that's where he actually started meeting a lot of the young men that he inevitably ended up raping and killing at KFC. And also John Wayne Gacy asked for his last meal a bucket of KFC and some French fries. So I do think it's interesting that like the whole programmed to kill thing comes back in connection with KFC.
Hold on right there, Julia. KFC is potato wedges. I just have to correct you.
That's what the article it says. It says John Wayne Gacy asked for a bucket of KFC, 12 shrimps and French fries, and a pound of strawberries for his last meal.
Interesting. I did not know that.
And somebody put in the comments, Gacy was known as the Colonel, but so wasn't Michael Aquino.
Well, he was actually a colonel, though. At least Gacy was not in the military, right? Be a little bit creepier, right?
No, he was not. But anyways, that was my interesting KFC axe murder connection.
Maybe it's
I like
it's baby oil that they're putting in the KFC there.
Maybe it's Maybelline.
You.
What else you got? What else you got, Kane? What did you see anything with some of these this conspiracy theory stuff? Did anything tip you off there, or any interest of any greater concerns or study, if you will?
I like the tie-in because you say, well, the family is irrelevant to the story, like the critics said, but the whole tie-in of the plot of the movie is his mom reading that paper and telling him the headline and all of the details, and then one by one he notices the martial arts stuff on the wall and the plumber story, and he puts it all together from the insignificant little bit with his parents.
That's a good point. And if I may play a scene on that note, because there's the pivotal scene, he gets back together, he goes and says he wants to marry her, right? And then all
Are
of a
we
sudden,
moving on from conspiracies real quick? I did have one.
We'll go.
Okay,
We'll go right. We can stay on that. I was just going to go over we can stay on. We got some more information on that. I was just going to go on that note. I can hold that note.
There's one thing with the Scottish wall when we get there, and then the Pentaveret. I just want to mention on the Pentaveret, it means 5 truths, and it's all for the greater good. So very much like New World Order stuff. So I just want to mention that before we move on.
And it actually spawned a Netflix series by Myers later, right?
Yes, it was actually a nod to that. Well, he said the Pentaveret then, and then it comes out like what, 25, 30 years later or something.
But it's based on that scene. I mean, that's what the character's based. I didn't do very well, but
no, it's an Easter egg there though for everybody to see. So for sure, that's interesting.
What about the Scottish Hall of Fame? Wall of Fame?
Oh, the wall.
Legendary Sean Connery.
I love it. So the Scottish Wall of Fame, the ones I did pull off of there that kind of meant something. We got Sean Connery, who's a speculated Freemason. We've got Sheena E., who has some major occult connections, especially through Prince earlier. And she made the Filthy 15 with the Satanic Panic, where the parents started putting this stuff up for this specific song called Sugar Walls. That was a whole thing with her and Prince.
What is it? Can you unpack that? I don't know that.
Well, I mean, Sugar Walls, they're suspecting that it would be female genitalia. So she made this was Sheena Easton. She's on the wall there.
Wow,
so
I didn't know she did some weird shit like that. That's interesting.
Yeah, she made the Satanic Panic parents list called the Filthy 15 back then for that song.
I know that.
And so yeah, she had some
plays into the Satanic Panic then, huh?
Yep. The suspect connections there. And then Alexander Graham Bell, he's on there. He's a Mark Master Mason and an Alika Shrine, and he's also the regent of the Smithsonian. We've got Sir Harry Lauder, Freemason, and Jackie Stewart, which I didn't find an absolute confirmation, so I'll let him slide on it, but he's a race car driver. So just to let you guys know.
All right. I'm glad you looked at those. Who was all on that wall. I didn't get that deep into the characters, but we do see some interesting ones though. As I see the Sheena Easton Satanic Panic one seems uniquely interesting to me.
Definitely at a weird time before she kind of cleaned up her act there.
And speaking of Satanic Panic, Julia mentioned this one earlier, and I forgot to show it.
I told you, ass.
Very famous case, yeah.
Kane's favorite Mrs. Doubtfire from San Francisco versus the McMartin preschool owner from Los Angeles.
100.
There's something you can't unsee, huh?
The dress that she wears too is even like crazy.
Oh yeah,
similar. You know what I just thought of? Actually, did you guys watch They Clone Tyrone on Netflix?
Wait, who's cloning? I'm out of here. Folks are cloning folks here.
Did you guys watch it?
No.
So basically, it's a super conspiratorial movie. I love it. Everybody else hates it. Whatever. But in the movie, they talk about how the government has been poisoning the fried chicken in this town to make people more easily controlled and subdued. And
That's
so
what
I
MSG
just
does,
thought
right?
of that right now because it's so interesting why they would use a fried chicken place. And it also has what's his name in it that everybody says was cloned.
Oh, Schindler's List.
God.
No,
Jamie
I didn't.
Foxx.
What's the name of that movie
Jamie
again?
Foxx.
What's
Jamie
it again?
Foxx. It's called They Cloned Tyrone.
They cloned.
And it has.
I've never even.
Yeah,
heard
I've
of
heard
this,
that was a
Julia.
good movie, actually, Julia.
I haven't even heard
A
of the
lot of
movie.
people says that it's trash, and I love it. Oh my god, I could watch it over and over again. But so
It's great to watch
Jamie
it.
Foxx is in it, and they talk about how that the government a shadow government cloning conspiracy, and they're also
Yeah.
poisoning the fried chicken in the town that they live in to make
I'm not-
people more easily controlled and subdued.
I'm not gonna lie to you. This might be Kane's favorite movie, Fried Chicken and Cloning Experiments.
Well,
I mean, that's
let
Kane's-
me
that's right
add
up his
another
alley.
fried chicken establishment to the mix is also Gus from Breaking Bad. I forgot the name of the chicken place. If anybody remembers out there, but that was a big part of Breaking Bad also.
Well, I think with regards to this film and the secret ingredient, from my take, he was referring to as MSG, and the number one ingredient in Chick-fil-A chicken is MSG, apparently highly toxic neurotoxin. Heidi's a medical person though; she would know better.
So
yeah, I don't know if it's still in it, but it is.
I thought
In
Chick-fil-A
Chick-fil-A, it
wasn't
is, yeah, in
allowed to
Chick-fil-A.
use that.
Man, look at the last time I looked at Chick-fil-A's nutrition. It's probably been about a year or so, but it was still number one.
Really? I thought Chick-fil-A was supposed to be the good guys of chicken.
Well, let's be honest about the situation.
Well, they're closed
Is there
on
a good guy at
Sundays.
chicken? The Tyson Corporation has been busted for cocaine trafficking, or at least investigated it for cocaine trafficking with their friend Slick Willie numerous times.
Tyson is McDonald's, though, right?
I'm just saying that they run the chickens. They run all the chickens in America. And they're Slick Willie's friends.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, Chick-fil-A doesn't get off the hook, I guess.
So we
I do love
we have anything else on that scene particularly, or just the ideas of the serial killer that is Harriet? We learned later is Harriet's sister, and I will introduce to us here in a moment. But Rose, that is interesting name, and she's Christopher Plummer's daughter. I suppose that's kind of interesting.
I do have something else to add about this scene, but it comes from the
Yeah.
mom.
Okay, well, go ahead.
So right after the scene where the dad's talking to the detective guy, Mike Myers is in the kitchen with his mom, and she's like, "Oh, I got this juicer," and she's like talking about going on a diet. Do you remember the diet she said? The Garth Brooks diet, right?
Brooks.
So there's all this stuff coming out about Garth Brooks being a fucking serial killer.
Yeah.
And like that's also part of the Program to Kill story, is that Garth Brooks is probably a real life fucking serial killer who has been killing people for a while now.
I mean, he's got friends in low places, but
very low places.
He's very low places. I mentioned it in my 90s series, though, because I love 90s country, and Garth Brooks is definitely one of my faves, but he definitely is a serial killer, in my opinion, at this point.
Oh, no.
I mean, you remember when he went
trucker guy?
He went full Chris Gaines, right? And then he tried out for the San Diego Padres to be a pitcher after that, I think. I mean, the dude's done some wild shit.
Go Pods.
But yeah, that was the other thing I noticed, is that she mentioned she was going on some kind of Garth Brooks diet after the dad just got done talking about all this other conspiracy shit. It's like, out of all the celebrities you could have chosen, you picked Garth Brooks diet? Really? Like, that seems
I know, right?
oddly specific.
Well, what if the writers at that time, when Garth Brooks was definitely a singer at that time, what if the writers at that time knew something that we only are learning now?
Right. Also,
Like,
that
Garth
he
Brooks is
said,
son of a
he said all of these secret families meet up in Colorado.
In the meadows.
Also,
Yeah, the airport, the Denver airport, right?
Well,
not only that, Nelson or Lawrence Rockefeller had a ranch out there. When he's naming these families, all of the Skinwalker Ranch and all this alien agenda stuff we see from Stephen Greer, that all comes from a ranch in northern Colorado owned by Lawrence Rockefeller.
Well, that and Stanley Kubrick also took a lot of time to film in and around Colorado. John Benet Ramsey with her crazy fucking parents and all the Eyes Wide Shutters of Colorado. I mean,
Hunter S.
we're
Thompson?
talking, yes, and the Wonderland raids also went through Colorado.
Yep.
So a lot of weird, and I saw in the chicken comments, a lot of people are talking about the chicken still over here. They're talking about how it's code for child pornography stuff as well. So can't forget that connection with
Can't
the
forget
chicken.
that.
Let me throw one more into the mix. It's a double JJ
Throw it.
reference.
Throw
John Denver.
John Denver, I heard he's full of shit, man.
John Denver is a whole other. I've covered him ad nauseum on my show. That's a whole other conspiracy for another time. But yes.
Oh, I'm glad you said that. You covered Marilyn Monroe recently. Guess who lived in North Beach, of the same area where this was filmed, is where Joe DiMaggio is from. And when she was married to Joe DiMaggio, they had a home there in North Beach area, neighborhood of San Francisco.
Say it ain't so, Joe.
Say it ain't so.
Whoa. And thanks for listening to that, by the way, JJ. Sorry I didn't get back to your email, but yeah, thank you for listening to that. That's a whole nother rabbit hole.
Oh, for sure. I hope you found my notes interesting when I'm posing the question. Is this, and this is what Heidi and I were talking about on Eyes and Ears the other night, is when we unpack these parapolitical scandals and ideas, are we really just looking at the machinations of an old family feud?
Right. Exactly.
Because old Marilyn Monroe is connected to the Manson family murders herself. Her cousin Abigail Folger got murdered there. Isn't that weird?
I mean, to me, stuff just stacks up to be honestly too much for a coincidence, and we know this, but it's still, disappointing when you find out about certain things. I'm reading a comment right now from Tara Jackson. It says,
facts.
Her mom would freak out if she ever heard that John Denver was anything but, the icon that people think he is. Also, somebody said, come on, girl, not Denver. Dude, if you heard my presentation on John Denver, you'd never fucking look at him the same. Sorry.
You mean John Dusseldorf?
You're right. Duchendorf, whose father worked at Area 51.
Yeah,
hello.
There you go. Hello. That's one of the classic Mike Myers scenes in here when they're in the diner and they're talking about what are the scariest things to happen. He's like, hello.
Maybe he was a pilot to Mirror Lake from Vegas.
So, what are the other character attributes or scenes that stood out to y'all as we wrap this up for the closing scene when we meet the serial killer? What are some of the other aspects or characters or the scenes that stuck out to y'all?
I have one about their tartans that they got married in. So,
yeah. Oh, well, that's a good time for me to play this scene. Can I play the scene first, and then we'll we'll unpack that?
Yep.
This is where Kane blew up my brain hole before the show, telling me that this is Zach Galifianakis that is the piper down in the scene in the wedding ceremony reception. And also here we see right after Charlie gets married to Harriet, and he had decided she's not the serial killer from the Weekly World News, Mrs. X. One of the attributes from Mrs. X was she knew the song Only You in like 7 different languages. So this is the wedding reception with those tartan kilts and the Only You song. Oh, not quite yet. Almost. And stand by, please. I'm working on it. All right, there we go. Oh, now I messed that up. All right, we'll get it going. I had it to the right spot. That's fantastic. I like the immediate review. He's like, no, you did great. You did great.
Just FYI, they just nailed me for a copyright on this.
Oh, it was probably the song beforehand.
Yep.
They'll bring you back up. They take you down for a minute until you take the copyright stuff off.
Yeah. No.
So that's a great scene, Kane. What was your big moment there that you really enjoyed about that?
Just when he's just like so unsure of himself and he's biting his finger after he'd slammed him against the wall.
Right.
He just played the role so well. Alan Arkin, his movies going back to the 70s are just hilarious, man. There was one where it was like one of those My Daughter's the Bride kind of movies. And then I think I don't know if he was in Schindler's List. Also, was good.
I think he was a star of Schindler's List, actually.
Yeah. Steve Martin is another one when you want to talk about roles like these. He's just so powerful that he takes over the scene. You know what I mean? They do pay a lot of homage in movies back in the 90s to the greats that were.
That if I may add some context to that scene, I do appreciate you bringing that up because this is a good scene. But the part earlier in the film, though, he's complaining to his boss, the police captain, that he's not serious enough. He wants him to yell. He's being too kind. He's got no police commissioner to curse to him about. He's got to report to. He's like, well, actually, I report to a commission. He's like, I don't even report to an actual person. So he's like, I couldn't even be mad at one person. You know, that whole dialogue is just Mike Myers' brilliant level of comedy. I think brought to this film is that dialogue.
Yeah, it's funny and it's political satire at the same time.
Absolutely.
And they were pointing out how ridiculous it was then, and look at Newsom in California now. As extreme as it could get.
I mean, that's for sure. And they work for the Gettys. The Gettys are part of the Pentaveret. So we see Alan Arkin, he's a pretty legendary dude, right, in acting. Do you know his dad? Julia, you'll appreciate this fun fact. His father wrote a song with Three Dog Night. You know who Three Dog Night is, right?
Of course.
They're infamous for being associated or almost associated, right, with the 4 on the Floor murders, right?
Right, yes.
Another Laurel Canyon famous incident, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so his father was David Arkin, a teacher, painter, writer, and lyricist, but he did, in fact, write songs with Three Dog Night. In fact, Arkin's most memorable songwriting contribution was creating the lyrics to the song Black and White with music by Earl Robinson in 1954. The song was written to celebrate United States Supreme Court decision of Brown versus the Board of Education and had been recorded by Pete Seeger, Sammy Davis Jr., Greyhound, the Maytones, and Three Dog Night. Do you know who else is a co-writer on that song?
Tony Bennett.
Jimmy Page. A lot of Crowley stuff going on in that song and in and around those activities.
You got Jimmy involved now.
Back to the 50s with Alan Arkin's dad. This is long before The Who.
Crazy.
So that's a little fun fact that they got him in here, right? And
Jimmy Page was a studio musician, very famous for decades before he did Led Zeppelin.
You mean like a kind of Phil Spector studio musician?
Very likely.
Speaking of Mrs. X, don't you find it kind of very MK Ultra-y that she just knows Russian and starts popping off in Russian? Like, I got very MK Ultra spy lady vibes.
Well, how about a little Stanley Kubrick reference there for Miss Julia's right-hand man from Clockwork Orange, Stanley Kubrick, and the adaptation of Clockwork Orange, where English and Russian were combined as one language, which makes it an almost impossible book to read. It's so much Russian in there that, but you have the Karuba juice bar or milk bar and, very little Russian words I can remember. But where were we going with that? I just started.
I think it was Schindler's List. No, that's a good point. That you're bringing up a lot of the history of that city. I mean, there's a lot of Russian stuff that goes on there. I think, there might be more to the former husband that was killed of Harriet's by her sister.
And then she was into martial arts, and it was more than the husband. She said she did it too.
Yes, she did.
Right. No, I totally agree. There's
probably
meaning there, right?
So also Chinese influence in San Francisco, very much.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, Julie.
She's an MK Ultra.
No, you're good.
That's what I was.
So let's meet the killer because she seems like a mind controlled assassin, right? With her whole
nature. No, that's
right?
good. That's good, Julie. I like that.
So we finally see Harriet's sister throughout the film intermittently, but we finally learn at the end when Charlie's on the honeymoon at that Dinsmore house that it's not Harriet that he's convinced of. It's surprising because he locks Harriet in the closet. And all of a sudden, the sister comes out with the axe, right? And that's where we meet Rose, the axe murderer, right? Oh, that's such a classic part of that scene right there, right?
That whole rooftop scene is just balls out hilarious.
Literally.
You know, when I knew the sister was the axe murderer, and mind you, this is the first time I ever watched the movie. I always try to guess the end to see if I'm right. But I knew the sister was the axe murderer when she offered him breakfast and then just gave him a bowl of Fruit Loops. I knew it was her. I was like, this bitch is fucking insane. She was like, what do you want? Some fresh scrambled eggs, pancakes, shrimp and grits.
I'll
How
have all
about
those
some
things.
fresh coffee, this and that. And then she's like, oh, I didn't have any of that. Just kidding. Here's a bowl of Fruit Loops. I was like, she's Fruit Loops.
I didn't
She's
have any
the
of that
killer.
stuff. Yeah, definitely.
She's
Fruit
the
Loops,
fucking killer. And I was right. As soon as I saw her at the end of the movie, I was like, I fucking knew it. Rose is crazy.
Yeah, it's a pretty wild turn of events there. I mean, there's a little bit of a Shyamalan twist style events, right? And you again, it's all very, it's not really rooted in that history they give you, but they give you this beat poet history of the whole place, right?
Yeah, and also, can I just say it never made sense to me since the ending of the movie was that the sister really did kill all of her husbands. It never made sense to me why they had to have the girl best friend named Ralph and not explain why the fuck her name would be Ralph. Like, she's clearly married. She was married to a guy named Ralph, so why
Ralph
not just
Elliott
let
too, right? Yeah.
Why have to incorporate the female friend that's named Ralph and then not give any backstory to that whatsoever? To me,
that's a solid point.
I was like, why was that necessary? Because we now know she really was married to a guy named Ralph, and she's like calling his name out sexually while she's sleeping, and then all of a sudden this weird female friend named Ralph comes in. It's like, unless your name is Ralphina or some shit like that, get the fuck out of the movie. I don't like you. Why are you here?
Well, and the part where they were in bed, it's like right by that scene Julia's talking about, and she's like,
right,
so I could just do anything to you and stick a needle in your ear and all this weird stuff. And I'm like, okay, that's getting pretty out there. But then after that, like, they're outside, it shows them kind of messing around later, and then he's talking about like evil, like he says it like Dr. Evil, and then he's
like
but he's
of the devil,
the fruits of the devil, and then he says, let's go dance in the
Oh.
night, and I'm like, that's pretty satanic for just a little.
Where were they
quote
standing
there.
when they did that? Where were they standing?
They were
Because again,
outside.
but they were in like a park because
Yeah.
because you got to think though, because this is San Francisco. This is the site of the first public satanic church in 1966, right?
It was weird. I think that was a weird nod.
And then she was like, well, what would be brutal to someone else might not be brutal to it. Like,
Y'all are making some good points. I'm going to bring that scene up because please continue, because that's a good scene.
Oh, bring it up.
No, go. Please continue though. I'm looking for it.
Well, let's just say at the end of the movie, we realize Harriet really isn't the axe murderer, and she's just a regular girl. She was fucking weird. She was weird enough to not want to be in a relationship with, just on the face of her being a fucking weirdo.
No, they literally build the character as to make you completely suspect of her. She's so sweet on the one side, but then she wants to stick stuff in your ears, and then the plot twist is obviously supposed to be.
He still asks her to marry him even after she said the weird stick a needle in your ear comment. It's like, just on that alone, I wouldn't be
push you off a bridge. Yeah.
Yeah. And she's like, I could do anything to you while you're sleeping. All right, bye, bitch. I'm not fucking sticking around to find out what that's supposed to mean.
I don't want a needle in my ear while I sleep. Screw that.
You are bringing up great points, because these folks were there too. Well, the non-Muppetized version of these folks were there too, along with Michael Aquino and the Church of Satan and Anton LaVey, all in San Francisco at this time, right? In the late 60s there, right? So again, this is looking at a nod to history. You all bring up some good points about these fruits of the devil, as he puts it, right? And I got that scene for us right here. If y'all don't mind, I'll play it.
Yeah.
That's the portion of the Presidio that Lucasfilms took over, by the way. Just saying.
No coincidence there, I'm
No,
sure.
no, but I'm gonna bring up a picture of that view here. But yeah, I'll show her exactly where that's at. Again, I'm a bootleg. My folks out there, my dudes, and some of their folks, jokingly call me Joshua Norton, the Emperor Joshua Norton, the infamous character out there that just kind of floats around. Is always, just floating around people's houses and partying places and whatnot. Are y'all familiar with that legend of San Francisco? Oh my gosh, that's a great one. I just got to take a quick detour on that one then and introduce y'all to Emperor Norton. He was the Emperor of America and of Mexico. According to him, he wore a uniform. He like I said, he made his own money. Places of San Francisco would just give him food and stuff like that and take his currency that he would make. Folks would just let him stay at their homes and stuff. The entire city shut down when he died. A tremendous amount of people decided to come. Yeah, Emperor Norton I, Emperor of the United States, commonly known as Emperor Norton, secondary title protector of Mexico in 1866. He lived from 1818 to 1880. And from 1860 to 1880, he lived on the streets of San Francisco, and no one really knew where he came from or his backstory. I mean, there's claims, but when he died, I think it was like 10,000 people came to his funeral. Interesting character. One of the many aspects I appreciate of the history of San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, 10,000 people. The next day, the San Francisco Chronicle, Herb Kane, the beatnik guy who invented that, and we saw the scene from earlier there, the Chronicle, under the headline, whatever that says, that some 10,000 people had come to view the emperor's body in advance of the 2 p.m. funeral. So that wasn't even the funeral. That's what I'm saying. This dude was, a very beloved character out there, and he was an interesting, eccentric. Again, he made his own money and declared himself the king of America and Mexico, emperor. But a lot of interesting characters in San Francisco, but nonetheless, what we saw there was
they pulled my channel again.
Damn it!
I'm sorry.
What was that, Kane?
The People's Church, wasn't that what it was called in San Francisco? From Dude 2271 DB.
Dude, where's my car? Dude, where's my car?
Jim Jones.
Where's my car, dude?
People's Temple.
People's Temple. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
I was just gonna keep stone facing you and Stonewall until Julia answered you.
You knew I would bail.
I was just, eventually I knew you were gonna come in there and answer it. I just want to keep giving them the wrong answer.
They didn't even use real Kool-Aid.
Flavor Aid.
It was Flavor Aid. Yeah. Did I hear that from you?
Probably.
Okay. Yeah.
I was about to say Julia's an expert in these things. I mean, I know
I'm
much
trying
about
to bring the facts, Julia.
She's definitely
You're doing good.
Blowing up my brain hole a couple times. So here we go. We just saw this scene right there. Boom! Look at that. Why are they on the Presidio?
Probably because they were sucking and fucking with Michael Aquinto.
Right. Well, they're talking about dancing with Satan in the night on the Presidio.
That's why I'm saying that. That's why I'm saying that.
I'm sorry, what's the background of the Presidio?
For me to talk about tomorrow. I appreciate. Are you serious?
You lost me on that.
First of all, Kane, I'm not offended that you don't know the background of the Presidio. I'm offended you didn't listen to my show last Thursday after you told me you did. Got a bone to pick with you, sir. Got a bone to pick with you. No, it's an infamous Satanist scandal of an army daycare rapes that are infamous for all the wrong reasons.
100.
I'm just messing with you.
Presidio.
No, that's real.
No, I'm saying I'm messing with Kane.
Is it an air base?
Yeah.
What is it?
It was an army. It was an army base.
It was known for diddlers.
Well, tune in tomorrow night, folks. If you want to hear more about the Presidio daycare scandal, I'll be reading the law enforcement documents that implicated Michael Aquino, the PSYOPs, the guy from Fort Bragg, Special Forces, PSYOPs guy, dude, tying into all that Idaho stuff and Idaho Contra and Fort Bragg. But tune in tomorrow for Operation GCD Thursdays, where I'll be unpacking more of these ideas and, again, reading the law enforcement documents of this Presidio daycare scandal involving the non-Muppetized version of this guy that's at that same base that we just, again, this y'all are blowing my mind. I didn't even pick up on that until you just said something about the devils and the dancing. I'm like, wait a second. That was the Presidio. It clicked. As soon as you said that, I'm like, I've seen this so many times. And that's why I'm happy we have these discussions. And I appreciate your all's time, attention, conversation, and participations, and the folks of the interwebs. But yeah, I can watch this a bunch of times, and I never put all that together for whatever reason.
I mean, you also have to say it does have a beautiful view, despite what may have happened there. It was a lovely view.
It's
some of the most beautiful views, bro.
You know, another movie they used that in. Now I realize is at the about the midpoint of the movie The Interns. Has anybody seen that? Very sexually kind of charged conversation. Nobody's seen you've seen The Interns.
I have no.
Owen
Nor
Wilson
do I.
And
the
Vince
interns,
Vaughn.
the internship.
Did I say it right?
I don't know. I might be saying it. No, it's the internship.
People's Church. It's the People's
Church. I'm a fighting phoenix.
Woo, woo. 1 minute you're in a blender that's this tall. The next
what?
Saving lives.
Oh, that's a good one. No, that's Silicon Valley, just south of the San Francisco metropolitan area. So, if I may, I may offer some folks some closing thoughts here in a moment. If I may bring us in for a landing here with my Cocaine Bob connections, if you will, if y'all don't mind. But Kane, I do
want to mention some of one thing before you go, JJ.
Sure.
That lady that played Mrs. X, Nancy, whatever.
Let me put a book in on Kane's comment real quick, though, Heidi. Yeah, I agree with you, sir. This is some of the most beautiful views I've ever seen. Where this skeleton's sitting, I have about 9 different shots of me and my dudes there, my brothers. Because again, this is my favorite view looking over the city. So if you look down here to the right, that's where the photograph we were just looking from at the other end of that, the opposite end from the hill here in the Golden Gate Bridge. That's the Presidio we were just looking at. Right there. For relative comparison.
I see. So it's like an open area kind of thing. There's a restaurant on it or something?
Well, up there's just a park. It's hiking trails and just like a bluff. It's the, that whoever did that painting of the Grateful Dead, they had it right because that's the best view in the city.
On the side where the skeleton is, to the right, to his right, there's a really killer video of a surfer because there's a breaking wave there. And there's a great white shark circling around him, and all the people on this beach are like, shark.
Shit.
And he just takes his board and hits the shark because it's probably so hard to get there. He has to work all day, and there's these good ways. He's like, I'm not gonna let this stupid shark. And
if folks do want to go to the Presidio and they want to do some campgrounds action at the Presidio, legally speaking, they do have a campground there. I highly recommend Rob Hill Campground, and the view from this area is pretty ridiculous. It's pretty stupid. Let me just give you a quick peek on what that looks like here.
I don't know if I'd ever want to go because all I'd be thinking about is all the little kids getting raped.
What? You don't want to camp right here?
California is beautiful, man. It really is so beautiful.
I mean,
there are many beautiful places in Oregon too. I think I'll check out where they filmed
Oregon's
the Goonies.
More,
wait, those kids got raped too.
Yeah, the only safe place is here in Nevada's.
Can we go somewhere without kid rape? I'm not sure that we can.
That's what I'm saying. It's like anywhere I want to go, it's like, did kids get raped here? Because
not in my house, so I guess I'm safe here. I guess I can't go outside.
Right.
Like if I go to the grocery store or the McDonald's or wherever else around town, you know what I mean? It sounds like those are hot spots for this kind of activity.
McDonald's, man.
Dude, R. Kelly, when he gets out of prison for getting indicted up there in Chicago initially for diddling kids, he goes back to the rock and roll McDonald's, they call it there in Chicago. He goes back to that very same McDonald's where he victimized no fewer than 3 victims.
See, that's what I'm saying.
Stop. That's his first stop.
McDonald's is not even safe.
That's why I was bringing it up. R. Kelly's first stop was back to rock and roll McDonald's and dealing more kids. He just got out, dude. He just literally an hour earlier, he posted bond. Some lady who owned daycare centers did a $100,000 bond for him to get out initially. And then they go to a rock and roll McDonald's. How dark does that get? That's not the tale we're at tonight here, folks.
That's wild, though.
Yeah, that's a true story. So let me close it out here with my favorite Cocaine Bob connection. What film would not be complete without Cocaine Bob's? I appreciated that scene and still do from a constitutional rights perspective because he does not have a right to commandeer his vehicle. But that is, in fact, Charles Grodin, who got his first role courtesy of old Cocaine Bob Evans in that Roman Polanski Cocaine Bob satanic shit show of cinema, Rosemary's Baby. He played the psychiatrist.
Oh,
all right. I see where you're going with that.
Yeah. So it seems like, including y'all bringing this to my attention with the Presidio, Satanism, dancing in the night, being the devil, evil shit, and killing folks. We're talking about killing folks in that scene. In a movie about serial killers with nods to the Zodiac, I could not be more surprised, and I do appreciate y'all bringing that to my attention, because as you can see from the Satanism stuff going on there and these connections here, it seems like that's an undertone to the film. But if I can pass it around to all of y'all for roundtables, I appreciate you all joining me for the discussion, and for each one of y'all blowing my brain holes, except for the fake one with Galifianakis, which I'll get you, sir. I will get you for that one. But
JJ down. We got a JJ down.
Just so you guys know, Nancy cut her finger off in the filming of this show, and they had to reattach it.
What?
So, if I may pass it around for closing statements, Nancy Travis cut off her finger in the film, right?
Yep.
We'll start with Heidi.
Literally reattach the tip. Yeah.
That is wild.
So, yes, I am Heidi Love of the Unfiltered Rise. I'm everywhere podcasts are served. Check me out there, unfilteredrisepodcast.com. And that's it for me. Thank you so much for having me.
Can you give us a closing? Oh, thank you, Heidi. Thank you, ma'am. Can you give us a closing statement on the film or the discussion?
Oh, definitely. I definitely think you guys are right. There's a lot of undertones here that are evil, like the devil, just like he said.
For sure.
It does have a real ominous tone to it. I agree on that.
Definitely.
Well, I appreciate your time, Heidi. And Julia, do you have, please, any plugs or any closing statements on tonight's discussion? Again, thank you for joining me here to get a little GCD.
I always love getting a little GCD because I watch movies I probably would never have known about before. Definitely enjoyed watching this one for the first time. It's going to go up there in my list of faves. Actually, I thought it was hilarious. Lot of stuff.
Something to show your son to in the future, right?
Right. Yeah.
I remember I showed it to my son when he was like 6 or 7, probably, maybe a little too young. But I definitely enjoyed sharing this film with him. If I may interject.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many of the classics, that I would want my kids to watch like I did, and this is definitely probably going to be up there.
Yeah, it's the writing and the comedy for me that I appreciate. You know what I mean? Like, that's like amongst other films. Like, this is when I was introduced to my son. Like, you got to appreciate the film. These are the aspects. In discussing with and doing our own film review, mine and his film review. I discussed it with him. These are the aspects that I appreciate. What are the aspects that he appreciates? We would do this about a lot of films, but I would always emphasize, the comedy and the writing. These are always my favorite, and this is up there at the top of that list, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, some of the ones we've covered already, like Back to the Future, obviously, The Golden Child with Eddie Murphy. These are all movies that I grew up watching, and so I was going to tie it in to our Back to the Future conversation and say, with this movie, it's all about the power of puss. It's very simplistic. I enjoyed the storyline. The comedy was on point. I do have Cosmic Peach podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Send me an email if you want to work with me. JJ, I do want to talk to you about a serial killer that I've recently discovered in an upcoming episode if you'll have me. And
yes,
thanks so much. This has been another great one.
Yeah, thank you, JJ.
Program Serial Killers, you're talking my language, ma'am. So for sure. And thank you again, and appreciate your inputs. And Kane, sir, my Abbott and Costello sidekick from the Idaho 4 weekly wrap-up series at Kane Bees' Purge. What do you got, sir? I appreciate your time. Join them here to get GCD here tonight, and we'll get a little GCD. We got a lot of GCD, I think, to be quite honest with you. And what are your closing statements? Any plugs of Purgeons you want to plug?
I'm Kane B. I'm kind of a big deal. Play us out, JJ.
What does that mean, play us out? If anyone's not familiar, it's the Bill O'Reilly clip where he loses his mind when he can't figure out what play us out means. Now, I appreciate everyone's time and attention. And again, folks, join us here tonight to get a little GCD, get real GCD. Again, I'm completely blown up. My brain hole about these details. If you want to hear more about my thoughts on the activities such as the Presidio, the kid diddling the satanic business, tune in tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Times. free Patreon preview on my Rumbles, YouTubes, and the Twixters, and talking. I'm definitely going to be following up on this topic because I want to understand what else is going on here with some, maybe the writing staff. I didn't, who knows about that Presidio being that deep, and I know they had the scandal, but I mean, there's got to be a greater connection.
It takes a lot of work to have subtext like that. You're right. That's what I'm saying.
It's not. Yeah, it's not a passing scandal that happened 5 years before this movie was written, right? I just don't see that as being the connection. So I don't know, my thoughts there. But and then for all these Charles Manson and Bob Cocaine Evans connections, please tune in to Operation GCD Sundays as this Sunday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Times. Same as the Thursdays with the free Patreon previews. So do 6 Degrees of the Manson family murders. As you'll see here, we got some of the characters. Soul Cocaine Bob here, right himself, and all these other San Francisco connections through old Charlie Manson here. But I always enjoy talking about those characters. 6 Degrees of Charlie Manson or Bob Cocaine Evans are always a good time. So if y'all don't think, and we'll do it live. We'll do it live here. We'll do it live. And then I am not the vice president. That's correct. I'm not bombing anybody.
Well, that's it. That's the show here, folks. So the next time you're out on the town, visiting your local watering holes, or perhaps just meandering around, and you hear the unmistakable sounds of metal clanking, and you spot signs of a disturbance, well, check your six. Look in that garbage can, because you never can tell. The GCDs may be loose in your town.